I'm vengeance.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to the first AUTOPSTREAM in quite a long time. It's been months and months and months and months. Hope everybody's doing good this Friday evening. Hope everybody's seen the Batman. He's about to spoil the shit out of it.
I have.
And yes,
I have.
yes, okay. Brian, you've heard of the Batman, the new Batman movie?
I believe it's some independent film doing the rounds. I'm just here to see what you guys think of it, so I can make a decision.
There was somewhere around 3 to 4 dozen people that weren't sure if me and Sean had heard of it. I wanted to make sure that we knew.
Are you going to watch the Batman? Are you thinking about seeing that one?
Yeah, exactly.
I am considering that.
It's a strong consideration.
I'll see if I can squeeze it in between the Adam Project and something else. As you guys can see, CP is not here today. He's in the middle of moving. We tried to line it up, but his whole weekend looks like it's going to be probably in shambles. So we're going to try to do a Dead Air episode once he gets settled in his new place and everything. But before we get kicked off talking about the Batman, and I wish CP was here for this, but he does have a little video here. Wanted to do one of 2 announcements that we have today. And this is something that, I mean, it might as well have been official for a long time, but for certain reasons we didn't make it official. But now we can make it official. Brian, who's going to be joining us officially as an AUTOPSTREAM member?
I thought you were going to say the announcement was that Batman is officially the best superhero of all time.
Wow.
But yeah, of course, our good boy here, Uncle Chandler.
Oh, me! Oh, very good. Very excited.
Yes.
Very excited.
He's practically been with us on AUTOPSTREAM for a good while now, in all but kind of official title, whatever that means. So, hell with it. Just welcome aboard.
Yeah, Sean's been with us. I mean, every 31 on 31 that we've done since we had the action idea, that I was like, Sean would be perfect for this. He's been with us every single time. He's thrown out ideas. The 31 on 31 MCU, DCEU was his little brainchild. So he's practically been a member the entire time. And so this is something that going forward, anytime you see us together, Sean will be here. Hopefully we get to do a lot more of these. That's my goal, to at least to try to get us together at least once a month. All of us have different wild schedules. That's always the hard part. TP's got personal stuff going on. Me and Brian and Sean all have kids and wives, and so at any given moment, our calendar can just get ripped off of the page. Like, nope, start over. So yes, so welcome, Sean.
We nearly missed the boat on that DC versus Marvel thing, because there's literally one chance you get to do a 31 on 31, and we're just like and Sean's like, "Hey guys," it's like how did we
my
not see
comment
that?
section really to save the day. They're like, "You should do this." I was like, "You're correct. That's literally one window to do it."
Man alive, yeah. So spot on.
Awesome. All right, so our local little Riddler, CP, has a little video that he sent to me. I did a little bit of a funny job to it, so here we go. Here is CP for the duration that he'll be on this episode.
Hi there.
Either I'm getting robbed slowly but surely, also dirtily, or I'm in the middle of a move. I wish I could be there tonight, tomorrow, later. I've lost track of everything. I'm moving stuff out of one place and out of here, and ultimately from here to there, and it's convoluted. I'm already taking too long. I just wanted to formally congratulate Sean on being a part of the group that the worst kept secret that's been a thing for a while. Welcome aboard, Sean. Unless, of course, this is some sort of backhanded way that I'm being replaced by Sean, and Cody's planned this move, which makes a little bit more sense. No, my schedule is usually pretty rock solid, except this week has been atrocious. I'll be happily back the next time, and you wouldn't have liked what I had to say about Batman anyway, because I'm not rah about it. Also, I'm fucking exhausted. So hi, Brian. Hi, Brian. Can't wait. You're gonna miss me being your counterpoint on anything you have to say.
A new beginning at least attempts something with a story. It's just.
I'll be back. I'm not. There's nothing. There's nothing full time about this. Another 2 or 3 days, and I'll be back to annoying the rest of you. Especially Brian. Welcome, Sean.
He figured
He's
it out.
such an annoying git.
Now that that's over with. No. Oh man. All right, guys. So we'll talk to CP here very soon. So the Batman. This is your warning. If you have not seen the movie, we're just going to talk about every little detail. So I'll start off with Brian, because I know I've talked with Sean quite a bit, and I've talked a little bit with Brian, but we've been doing a lot of rankings. What exactly was your expectation for this new Batman movie? Because you're probably, as much as we're all fans, you're easily the biggest Batman fan of all of us, and you're easily the biggest Nolan fan. And so, being that the Nolan trilogy is your favorite movies of all time, possibly impenetrable in that status, what was your expectations for this movie? What did this movie need to do for you?
If the movie that we ended up with was the movie that we got sold in the trailers, then I was expecting this to crack my all-time top 10. Mm-hmm. It has indeed cracked my all-time top 10. So,
see, last time I talked to you, it cracked the top 20. So,
yeah,
dominating a bit.
I've seen it again since.
You have seen it a second time since?
I have, yeah. So
did you like it more the second time?
I liked it equally. I don't know about more, but certainly equally. Although it must have been more because it's gone up into my top 10 on it. So actually, I think it's not so much that I liked it more. It's just that I'm very reluctant to put a movie in my top 10 on just a one-watch thing. I see all these people who hit Facebook after seeing the Batman opening weekend and they're like, best film ever made! It's now my favourite movie of all time! And I'm like, alright, you've only watched 100 movies, that's fair enough, that's fine, I was like that once. But it's just like these days, you know, when you've seen over like 4,000 movies, having a great experience one time with a movie doesn't justify putting it in the top spot. I think it has to hold up to repeat viewings before it gets that privilege. But it's certainly on its way there. So
I saw somebody in the chat say my volume is low. Is it better now? I sound normal to myself, but let me know.
Yeah, we were talking about this before the stream started, so we experimented. We thought it was better, but it's low in my ears too. So I don't know.
Is it up now? Is it getting louder?
It sounds
close,
all right to
it
me.
seems like when you're like this, it's good, but as soon as you
Okay.
get back like this, it feels distant. And,
Okay.
It has less weight to it, thickness.
Very weird. Anyway, so Sean, what did this movie have to do for you? I know you're not quite on the level that Brian is. I don't think anybody else is. But what did this movie do for you? I know that The Dark Knight at least was, probably still is your favorite. So walking into this, big shoes to fill, what did you want out of this movie?
I wanted a detective movie. That's what I wanted. It's almost kind of that simple. Matt Reeves as a director, after what he did in Dawn of the Planet of the Apes and War for the Planet of the Apes, I trusted him to be able to tell a story with emotions, characters you cared about. In which case, then I want detective story. We've had the crime thriller, we've had the Burtonized gothic take, we've had the team up movie. We needed the detective story, and that's what he gave us.
Yeah, and I'm right along with that. We talked about that quite a bit while you were here. Is that was kind of both of our expectations. That was like the last piece of the puzzle that we haven't really seen explored. Even the Dark Knight, really, it's for the most part that one sequence where he's putting the bullet back together. Like that's the most detective sequence, and then a lot of that is just him using technology. But that intellect, walking in, solving crimes, solving murders, we never really seen that side of Batman before, and that's what the trailer sold. So kind of a mix between the two of you. I wanted it to be a detective story. I wanted some noir flavor in there.
He needs to be the smartest guy in the room. He's basically Sherlock Holmes, like a badass Sherlock Holmes. And it's like the scenes we get in the film where he's in a room full of cops, and he's the one who's saying, "Yeah, he's been dead, however long because of this, and this," and he needs to be the smartest guy in the room, and he is.
Yeah. Exactly. So my expectations were very specific. I didn't really need a whole lot of action. I knew we were going to get it. You can't get away with not having action in a Batman movie, but that was not my concern. I was already sold on Pattinson. I was already sold on the Bat suit, the Batmobile. I was sold on this new, very different interpretation of the Riddler. And even that was even something that was really felt almost too specific for me, because going all the way back to when Arkham City came out, and in the game, Brian, you're running around and you're solving all these little Riddler mysteries. So there's different little puzzles and traps, and I kept thinking when I was playing, I was like, that'd be cool if we get like a Riddler that's like Jigsaw or something wild like that. And this is like, he's like 30% Jigsaw in this movie. He's like Jigsaw, a little bit of Ghostface, a little bit of Riddler, and so everything about the trailer made me think this is the Batman movie that I've been waiting for. But I kept trying to make my expectations modest, because expectations can screw you when you walk into a movie if you go in sky high. And so going into the kind of just quick little brief overall thoughts, this was the Batman movie that I've been waiting for a long time. I mean, you're kind of comparing your favorite kids at that point when you start talking about the best Batman movie, if you are a fan of the movies that have come out, because we've had some damn good ones. And depending on what era you really grew up with it, I mean, there's people that still hold the 89 Batman as the best. There's people that love the Dark Knight trilogy. There's people that still love the 66 one. And this is the one where it just hit all the check boxes of things that I've wanted to see Batman do for a very long time. And so it was everything that I wanted. Even the few things where I was like, maybe I can kind of see that. When I watched it a second time, even those kind of went to the background. And I was like, it's perfect as far as my experience goes. It might not be a perfect film, but as far as what I wanted and what I got out of it, it matched up my expectations and surpassed a lot of them. So
I say that quite a bit to people. It's just that like I had this I didn't have a debate because I didn't get into it, because I just thought I'm not even tackling that. But somebody left a comment on one of my videos the other day saying, there's no such thing as objectivity in film, and this, that, and the other. And I was like, well, actually, I disagree, because objectively, I can recognise that from a script standpoint, Chinatown is a better written film than The Dark Knight, in the sense that I can't pick it apart, I can't find holes in the script, so therefore it's pretty airtight. It's a 5-star script. That doesn't stop the fact that I've only ever seen Chinatown once and never really cared to watch it again. Great film, but I'm not going to, I can see in the script of The Dark Knight where things can be tightened up. I can see that there are certain things where actually you could have done without that. But as an experience, it's that subjective experience of every time I sit down and watch it, I'm thrilled. Any flaws you can find with it fade away, because it's all about the experience, and that's cinema, isn't it? That's why we go to the big darkened screen. And watch this thing, because we want that experience that we can feel, and I get that with the and it's that puts it at my number one spot, not how perfectly built is the script and this, that, and the other. But so
absolutely, it's a weird argument to try to have with people when you try to explain the difference between best and favorite. And it's when I grade movies, it's very much off of my experience, which is, you know, the movie itself, how much I was looking forward to it, the rewatch value. That's a big one for me. I mean, like another comparison, like you know, obviously The Godfather is technically a better movie than something like Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, but I'll watch Planes, Trains, and Automobiles multiple times a year. I haven't watched The Godfather since I was 18 years old, and so it's weird. But yeah, this movie just checked all the boxes for me. I've seen it twice. I actually, ever since I walked out of the theater the second time, I've had the desire to go watch it a third time. Haven't had the time to, but I have not had the desire to watch a movie a third time since Signs came out in 2003, and it's a 3-hour movie too. So it's not the easiest movie to go and rewatch a bunch of times. So this for me,
I can confirm it is difficult to rewatch 3 times in a week.
Oh, Lord, yes, absolutely. Zach Pope, our buddy, did he actually go see it? What was it, like 7 times that he bought? He bought like tickets every day for like a week, month or something. I think.
He's still there as far as I know. He hasn't left the theater.
I don't think the movie had even came out yet, and he's like, just bought my 5th seat. And I'm like, whoa. Yeah, better hope it's good. So Sean, quick like overall thoughts, like how did the movie, like your experience and everything kind of land for you? I know you had a few more issues with it than Brian or I had.
Yeah, I mean,
loving it, which tells you how good it is.
Yeah, generally speaking, it was the movie I wanted it to be. I think it sits really nicely with all the other great Batman movies, in which case you've got an origin story, you got the crime thriller, you got the team-up movie, and now you have this. And so we have a full set of very different Batman movies that deliver everything you could want across the spectrum of them. And so I loved so much about this movie. I loved that Gotham was very lived in, that everything had a history, everyone has a backstory and connections to other people, and it's all intertwined, but intertwined in a way that doesn't make everything feel small. It makes it feel like it has a history to it.
Yeah.
And then we've got a very brutal Batman that, when you did that, I could hear myself because you were micing your headphones. It's like talking back at myself.
My apologies. I thought I heard my kid crying.
This guy's great. What did he say? But then, you know, a vicious Batman. Love that aspect to it. The Batmobile, that everything felt like something that a person had really built. When it comes to the problems, I think it was primarily kind of fell into a couple categories. One of them was, I don't know what the deal was with this Batman. It's like he wanted to get shot the whole movie. And so from the very first fight, he gets shot. Second fight, he gets shot. And then we get to a certain point in time, he's literally just walking down a hallway. It's an awesome looking shot of him getting shot with machine gun fire, and that they did an action sequence that was practically lit entirely by muzzle flashes. I love that that's a thing that exists. Do I love the fact that Batman is like, I got armor, that's cool, and that the thugs are like, I mean, the first bullet didn't pierce his armor, but let's keep shooting him in the chest instead of aiming for his chin that's right there. That's at a certain point, it just pulls me so far out of the movie. Like, I in general don't want Batman taking that many shots. I didn't like that Batfleck got shot in the back of the head in the warehouse sequence so flippantly, and this was like that the whole movie in every action sequence. But more importantly, it just felt like it let the air out of the balloon whenever the riddle, the whole mystery of the first 2 hours of the movie gets solved. Riddler gets kidnapped. It just felt a little bit like, okay, I'm ready to go. We got 40 more minutes, but I'm ready to go. And then it continues on, and you have the third act. And you know, when you get to the third act, because it doesn't involve the Riddler, it involves all these faceless guys that you don't care who they are, it doesn't have as much satisfaction to it. And then in the arc that they do give Bruce of learning to be the hero, not just the vengeful vigilante, it felt like there's some real easy things they could have done in that final sequence to have him make a couple more choices that are a little bit more overt, that makes it clear this is a Batman that cares about saving people, not just punishing people. Like, it's there, but it's a more subtle than I would have liked it to be. And I really wanted in the final epilogue Bruce Wayne to shake hands with the mayor. Something that just indicates that Bruce Wayne is taking that next step. Like, it's all implied, but I wanted, like, literally one shot, 3 seconds, him at the press conference when they're like, let's clean up the city, and Bruce Wayne is just standing there. That, to me, would have made a lot more impactful. So I'd give it like an F-.
Worst Batman ever. Yeah, it's funny. This is one of those movies where all of the rational things that I've heard said against it, things that it could have done better, or things that they would have preferred. I understand all of them, but even acknowledging them, it's like when I look at the movie, I'm like, it doesn't bother me though. And it's weird. I don't have that experience with movies. Like a lot of times I'm either like hard against, like, what are you talking about, Sean? What about this? This makes sense. Or because I notice it too, it's now one of my negatives. But this is just, for some reason, the movie, it's like it overperformed what I wanted so much that even these tiny little chips in the armor you can make against it, it's still like exceeding what I wanted. It is not really an experience I have very much. But so with that being said, we'll dive a little bit more into specifics now. I knew Brian was waiting. I knew he was waiting. I saw the steam rolling off that dome. Go ahead.
Well, I disagree with a lot of what Sean said then. But no. However,
Hang on, Brian.
however,
go ahead.
This ain't a car crash moment. There are a couple of things I do agree with him on, actually, that just occurred to me then as he was talking.
There you go, Rudy's got it.
How awesome! How awesome would it have been to have had that sequence in the cell with Batman and Riddler, and actually have it be Riddler who says, "I am vengeance," so that he's staring this guy in the face, and that's when he gets that light bulb moment. That side, I don't really have a problem with that. I do think that I would actually argue that the character change from vengeance to caring about people, because of the voiceover, is actually really less than subtle. And if anything, I would have taken that final voiceover off when he's helping the people out and when he's getting the woman on the chopper.
Even to that point, it says it instead of shows it. You put Bruce Wayne
No, but it shows it. No, but it doesn't. It shows it. Because I literally think you take away that voiceover and it's all in that moment. You literally don't need that voiceover to see the growth in the character. Yeah, like I felt something in here, like welling up when he's with that woman, because it's bookended from the first time we see him. So the first time we see Batman, he nails all the criminals, and then the victim of that crime is like, "Don't hurt me," and he's just like, whatever, and just walks off. He doesn't care. He's just like, he's not in it for the love of humanity. He's in it for vengeance. And then so you bookend it with a scene later on where he doesn't just get the hell out of Dodge. He's like, no, I'm sticking around. I'm helping people out. I'm touching this woman on the shoulder, and it's just that like I got the senses out of that. I gotta say,
and just shot where he's leading them out with the flare, and it's top, and it's all red, and you just see all the people funneling behind them. I love that shot.
Lose that voiceover. The voiceover throughout the rest, like the voiceover really bugged me the first time I saw the film, and then I realised going back and watching it the second time, the voiceover only actually bugs me on that final moment when he's getting the woman on the chopper. The voiceover in the rest of the bits actually works. It makes sense to have it there. But we don't need him telling us what he's learned in that voiceover, because it's right there on screen. It's not too subtle for me. I just feel like we're always kind of saying that, Hollywood movies bang you over the head with what it is they're trying to, and that's what great. But no, I just thought it was perfect. Right, Marcel. The second thing that I disagree with was the.
Well, pause on that. I think the issue for me, they have Bruce Wayne at the funeral with the mayor. Mm-hmm. They start the conversation. That to me feels like we set it up. Mm-hmm. That's why just one handshake at the end.
Yeah.
That's one handshake at the end says so much, because you don't have to do anything more than that, because we know what it means because of that sentence earlier, or the conversation earlier. And that's another issue with the kind of film of like the portrayal of Bruce Wayne as so distant that I get what they're doing. I totally. I'm not like. I've heard some people on Twitter like, you guys didn't understand the movie if you complain about this. Like, no, I got it. Like, I just my perception of what Bruce Wayne is and what I want in the film is
Twitter.
I
agree with you on that. I think, like I say, of the when you were saying some stuff before, there's a few things I agreed with, like I just and that was one. I do actually think ending the film with like a montage kind of sequence where you see kind of Gotham rebuilding, and just one of those shots in there is, I just say, Bruce Wayne shake hands with the mayor. I think that would go down a treat. I do disagree on the guns though, the shooting of them, because this is a Batman.
Bruce Wayne mowed down by guns all the time.
I recognize
that.
No, I wouldn't. But this isn't about a fully formed Batman who's at the peak of his career. This is a young man still who isn't there yet, who is still self-destructive. Not only just self-destructive, but destructive of those around him as well. As we pointed out, until he gets to the end, he isn't really caring about people. He uses Selina Kyle as a tool to get to Riddler. He has a moment there where you think he's going to be all compassionate, but actually he's just checking that the stuff in her eyes is working properly. And it's because he's so focused on the end game, and he doesn't give a crap about himself. And that's like the moment with Alfred, when Alfred comes to after the bombing. That's the moment where he realizes that there is someone I still care about. And he even says, I don't care about myself. I don't care if I die. But when you took that hit, holy crap, something woke inside me that I didn't realize was even there anymore. I buried it. This isn't a guy going around like Bale's Batman, who's done all his years of training and is like proper focused and cares and passionate and wants to do things the right way. This is a guy who's he doesn't care if he lives or dies. He's just vengeance. If I die in the process, then so be it. And it's the turning point is at the end of the movie, which is why, as you quite rightly pointed out, these people like Ben Shapiro putting videos out who are like, this isn't Batman, it's like, no, it's Batman in a moment of time. When we saw Nolan's Batman, when we saw Christian Bale's Batman, just in Batman Begins, we got years of his journey. In this film, we've got weeks. We've got a couple of weeks. It's a moment in time. So why would he change? Especially given it where he is in his career. So it doesn't bother me that Pattinson's Batman is one note in this, because we're in a moment in time where we learn why he went from this guy who doesn't care if he lives or dies, doesn't seem to care about people, to who we're going to get, presumably who we're going to get in the next film. So yeah, the bullets, getting shot all the time, don't bother me. If he continues behaving that way in future installments, that will bother me.
That was one of the things that I had the same grievance as Sean the first time that I saw it. I had noticed it because I love the shot in the trailer. Like that one shot that they did with the muzzle flashes, that's badass. But then that's like the fourth time in the film that happens, and there's still one or two times after that. So I had the same grievance. And then when I watched it a second time, it kind of... I already understood that this Batman is borderline suicidal, so that's why he's kind of doing that through most of the movie. I didn't like the fact that he did it after he's trying to save the city, because to me, I found that was kind of counterproductive. But when I watched it the second time, I noticed that after he reaches that point, when he gets shot point blank with the shotgun, it happens in like half a second. He didn't even have time to really react to it. So that's one that, again, I understand it, and I was there the first time, and the second time I was like, it makes a little more sense to me now. The only thing that I'm still, despite hearing Matt Reeves explain it, which made the scene much better for me, the only thing that I walked out that I would say 100%, if you cut it from the movie, I wouldn't worry about it one bit, was the little Joker tease.
Yes.
And I heard Matt Reeves talk about it, which made it make a lot more sense to me. That it was less of a tease of the Joker and more of a tease of Gotham's about to go nuts. Like Gotham's about to really explode, paired with the shot of Penguin looking out over the city that's now his for the taking. And you've got seriously loud typing by Brian. No, you got you got the Riddler sitting there, who's now made a friend. Something about that scene at the first time that I watched it, and it's still a little bit the second time. That was the only moment in the movie that didn't feel like it really was necessary. Everything else about the film, a nearly 3-hour film, everything for the most part felt like it had a purpose. There was a reason there. There was a deliberate decision to put it there. That was the only one that kind of slightly felt like the studio going, hey, make sure you put Joker in there at some point. And so how do you feel? I'll start with Sean. How do you feel about that tease? Because really, that's the only direct tease of what we have for the future. We can speculate all day long with the journey of Bruce Wayne and how Gotham's going to evolve minus Falcone and where the Riddler's going to go, but that was the only direct tease of either what's coming in the next film or what's going to be expanded upon and then happen in the third film.
Quick rewind to a previous statement that Brian made that has nothing to do with even responding to what Brian said.
I'm going to go to the bathroom while these two argue for the next hour. No,
it's actually not that at all. It was more like I did a little Google search because my brain got tickled by something. So you referred to this is a young man of a Bruce Wayne, unlike Christian Bale's. Did my Google search. Robert Pattinson is 4 years older than Christian Bale was when Batman Begins came out, which is how you perceive of things differently when you watch something and Batman is older than you versus when Batman is younger than you. It's a random fact, but it doesn't have anything to do with your actual argument, but that's fascinating, how perceptually Robert Pattinson in my brain is still 20. No, he's 35. He's not much younger than me. He's 4 years older than Cody over here, and so much closer in age to me, but he seems so much younger. Back to the Joker. First off, Cody and I had it spoiled for us in a live stream that we were doing, where a guy literally I've heard all the murmurs because the internet ruins everything. But then we're in a live stream and we're like, yeah, I don't follow leaks, I don't know anything about that. And the guy goes, well. He's like, a script came out in the casting, it says this. Yeah. And so then it's basically laughing guy in the asylum, roommate to Riddler. It was just what the reveal actually is in the movie. So then when the scene happens, immediately you're like, there it is.
Yep.
I
was sitting there and everybody's quiet in the theater, and it was one of those moments where I probably could have said it out loud and not even realized it. We were watching it, and as soon as you hear the jail cell sound, it means that you're in an asylum, and I just thought, I was like, dick. That was just the thought in my head. I was like, I knew it. Yeah. Knew
he has apologized in a live stream since then, but
not to me.
I actually had it ruined by the actor's brother. Because it was the actor's brother who the tweet got taken down within 20 minutes or whatever it was, but I think the brother of the actor got confused over something, so he congratulated him live on Twitter. But now the world knows, man, congratulations. And then 20 minutes later the tweet was gone, and it's just dude. So ever since then I've been waiting for a scene with that particular actor to pop up as the Joker. Hello.
But open the door. Dogs don't have opposable thumbs. What on earth? What just happened? But anyway, what do I actually think about it? This is not the way I would do it. Somewhat in relation to kind of a conversation that we'd had about the Blade reveal in Eternals.
Yeah.
I love Blade. That's an awesome character. Can't wait for him to show up in the MCU. And they do the reveal and it's literally a voice. And then you hear it and you go, could that be? It's just
that didn't dawn on me at all.
Yeah, I didn't think that at all.
I was like, is that really? I had to go search it. I'm like,
yeah,
that was Mahershala Ali. That's how you reveal it.
And I mean, not that he has an indistinct voice, but he doesn't have that incredibly distinct. And it's also one line of dialogue or something like that. So your brain just doesn't open that file. Mm-hmm. And so it just felt like, I would have liked to experience that in a more exciting fashion.
Yeah.
Blade just showed up, and that's what you did. And that's what this kind of felt like to me, of there's a guy over there, and okay, I know it's Joker because someone spoiled that for me on the internet. Oh, okay, well, cool. It just feels like just the wrong amount of a tease, and it's not what I would do. The concept of it, of a populated Gotham, and there's all these people out there in their infancy, I love all of that. They apparently shot 3 scenes, and 2 of them got cut, and there's some sense in which, and I hope this is where they're going with this, is doing kind of a Silence of the Lambs, Hannibal Lecter, Joker's, Arkham, and Batman's using him to get clues, and they're playing games. I love that.
Yeah, you said that in your review, and I was like, I need this.
and you hear what one of the scenes was that was deleted. It's a pinch of that.
Yeah.
I love that. Like, what if the next one is inspired by Silence of the Lambs the way that this was inspired by Seven?
Thing is, if you cut those 2 scenes, you cut the 3rd one. There's just that if you're not allowed the first 2 for runtime, whatever, then you cut the 3rd one, because otherwise that 3rd one is just all it is a tease, and it's like
And it's the same tease in Batman Begins, just done differently.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't play right when you do it just with that little of a tease. And we got out of the theater, and I started asking people, "Hey, what'd you think about the movie?" And 2 different times in 2 different cities, because I saw the movie a million times in a week, people went, "Was that Two-Face?" Because as best you could tell, there was scarring. And then over the internet, I had more people like, "Is that Two-Face?" And then Matt Reeves has made it clear, like, that's Joker. But that just feels like a very way to reveal something when people don't know who it is. Back to the Blade reveal of like, oh wait, that was Blade, really? And that's what people did with this of like, oh, that was Joker? Oh, okay, because he said clown and he laughed. Weird.
Yeah,
that's not what I would have done. There's some things here that are cool. That's not what I would have done.
that laugh as well does not do it for me at all. It's the Joker's laugh needs to be iconic.
That's exactly what does it for me. Oh, is that not where you were going with this? I misread your tone.
So, if you remember the teaser trailer for The Dark Knight, it was basically Alfred's voice, his whole some people just want to watch the world burn speech, followed up with "I'm a man of my word," and then you got that laugh, and as soon as you heard that laugh. It was instantly iconic, and 2, any doubt about Heath Ledger being right for that role just evaporated.
This is a true story. I was working at a hotel for like 3 months before I went to the year of college that I went to. And every time there was like dead space where nobody was coming in, I worked the front desk. I was always looking up things or on Amazon or whatever, and they dropped that teaser. And this is before I had smartphones. You know, they weren't quite this. They were still the little flip phones and everything. But that teaser dropped, and there weren't even any speakers. So it was the little tower, tower for the computer, and the sound would play out of the tower. And there's music and ambient noise and everything from the hotel. And so I played the teaser, and I'm like looking up at the screen like this with my ear by the thing, and that laugh came. I think I listened to that thing about 17 times that day at work. Because I'm like, that laugh is awesome. Yeah. I didn't hate on Heath, but that was still like that was one of those castings where I'm like, this is either brilliant or it's going to go so wrong.
Yeah.
And I had heard about the Glasgow, and I'm like, I don't know about that. And then I heard the laugh, and I was just like, I'm in.
Yeah.
I'm in. Replay. Do it again.
Like you didn't need to show him like that. That is I always say that is the absolute single greatest teaser trailer of all time. One that doesn't show you anything from the movie. You just use a bit of audio. You create a design for the visual. Lay that audio over, and it was just such a perfect teaser trailer. When I hear this guy's laugh. I can't remember the name of the actor. I'm sorry.
Barry Keoghan.
Barry Keoghan. Yeah, he's Irish. So Barry Keoghan, I like him as an actor from things I've seen him in, but I didn't like him as a choice for Joker, if I'm being perfectly honest. And then when we got that scene at the end and we heard his laugh, I'm just like, that was kind of the confirmation I was thinking. Because I'm like, with Joker, a lot of it is in the voice. And he just doesn't have the Joker voice to me. He sounds like someone trying his best, but...
Well, it's another one with kind of the Matt Reeves interview makes the scene better.
Yeah,
because when
he's
he
not
talks
Joker
about it
yet, and you know,
this is everything. Everyone and everything is in their infancy, and so someone like the Joker's very early on, and so he framed it not as this is the Joker in a Arkham. He framed it as this is a guy that will be the Joker that has this disease that makes it so he laughs. In which case, you interpret it differently, and it's like this doesn't need to be developed. It doesn't have to be great. But once again, that goes back to why it's like that laugh is our introduction to the Joker. That's your reveal. Like, how do we know that this is the Joker? Because he's like, ha, 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 something like that. Like, okay, Matt Reeves, you directed Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, so you are a much better storyteller than me. You are world class. That's a choice I wouldn't have made.
Yeah, I had said before that I don't need Joker for a while. You know, we have Heath Ledger, which, let's be honest, like, despite some of the issues I have with Dark Knight, Heath Ledger, it's going to take a lot to ever dethrone that guy as the best Joker. Like, we all have subjective opinions. Some people just love the Nicholson version. There's even people that love the Leto version. But for the most part, I think the majority of people would hold Ledger as the best. It's going to take a lot to ever match that. You had Joaquin Phoenix that won an Oscar. I wouldn't say that he quite got to where Ledger was, even though he was amazing. So that tells you the shoes you got to fill. So we've had Leto, we've had Joaquin just in the last 5 years. And so I'm like, I don't really need to see another version of the Joker right now. Like give us some time for these other villains. Show us some of these people that always get shelved, that never quite get there. Like, Joker's always kind of the trump card that gets pulled out. And so
you're talking about a character that's got the single greatest rogues gallery of any comic book character.
Yeah,
and
we've only seen like 7 of them on Yeah. And so that's kind of where I was coming from with it. Now, again, the Matt Reeves interview contextualized it in a way where I made a lot more sense of it, and I swallowed it down a lot easier, where I'm like, okay, it makes a little bit more sense. And me and Brian had talked about this whenever I first got his kind of first thoughts out of the theater, and reserved full judgment until we see him in action. That's not enough to really judge off of. It just doesn't excite me. I think Brian even said, just flipping the card over did infinitely more to excite me than that entire sequence.
Right.
But that was really the only point in the movie where I'm like, you could cut that out, and I would never really miss it. Really quick, just to catch up on a couple super chats. Aaron Anderson, it was good, but too long. Still prefer the Dark Knight trilogy. And I think I had one more. Let me see. Yes. Timothy Chalamet as Nightwing, thoughts? I think we're too early for Nightwing, because Nightwing, I mean, this is still young Bruce Wayne, so it's going to be a decade or more before he even gets to Robin, and then Robin has to have like a decade of experience before he's even Nightwing, doesn't he, or something like that?
I don't know how old Timothy Chalamet is, but Dick Grayson needs to be old enough to be Bruce's son. Adopted son, admittedly, but still.
26.
26,
right.
yeah. And he's got a little bit of a baby
9
face.
years younger than Robert Pattinson.
There you go. Do you think they're going to ever go the Robin and Nightwing route in this universe, Brian?
I think directors try and steer clear, to be honest. They're just not interested.
Even Nolan just did it for a second there at the end of it. He's like, there, I did it.
Yeah, it's just like I think they're happy to reference. The thing is, I was thinking about this before with Sean kind of reeling off the different interpretations that we've had so far of Batman. And as he's doing that, I'm thinking, you know what? It is getting ridiculously hard now for whoever is the next director to take on Batman, to find that next interpretation. Because everyone wants to do it differently. They want to put their own spin on it and do it their own way. And like the only way I can think of to do it would be to take an approach where, like, if you're going to do a trilogy, do all the beastly type villains. So maybe the first movie you've got Man-Bat, second movie you've got Killer Croc, third movie you've got Clayface. So it becomes like a monsters trilogy, which means you can go deep down the horror vibe, almost like Universal Monsters meets Batman. But it's just like
one reason why that Batfleck thing not working out is really a shame, because that was a universe where you could do the fantastical, and then Matt Reeves set up something that
Yeah.
I don't know how you do the fantastical here, but it was like it was right there in Snyderverse.
Yeah. Well, Reeves has been talking up Mr. Freeze. Apparently he's got a big thing for getting Mr. Freeze.
I would be fascinated to see like a grounded attempt at Mr. Freeze. I don't know if he's a serial killer that freezes people with nitrogen and puts the bodies up like the first season of Dexter or something. I really don't know, but I'm with Sean on that. That's the one thing. Aside from just wanting to see what Ben Affleck would have done with it, that was the one thing where it's like, damn, this is the one time that we could have gotten weird, and it got cut off at the knees. I'm still holding out hope. I'm still until Ben Affleck passes away. I'm still going to hold up a little bit of hope that, like, is it really your last time? Like, it's a flash.
And with what they're doing with all these universes and being like, yeah, we're just going to have everything going at once. We're not going to worry about any of that stuff. And with them trying to generate content for HBO Max, there's always potential that something could happen. They seem totally okay with that.
Yeah. I'm still going to hold out hope. But yeah, I'm with you. That was actually one of the bigger things that I heard as far as people's disappointment when they were kind of showing the trailer. It was that they were like, oh, back to this grounded shit again. And it was like, well, yeah, but
there's a few people in the chat who keep mentioning Hush.
They actually hint at him in the movie. Did you?
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So, but I'm wondering because the moment at which they hint at Hush, when they say like it literally comes up on screen, Hush, and it comes up just after the Riddler has talked about this reporter whose last name is Elliot. And I'm wondering if, obviously, he's doing things his own way, if he's going to put a different spin on it, where maybe the son of that reporter.
That's what I was thinking.
Turns out to
when
be
he was
Hush.
revealing that, I thought the Riddler was actually going to be the son of that reporter.
That's what I was thinking too. I was like, oh, that's where this is going. No, that's not where it's going at all.
Yeah.
And that would make sense as well, because Riddler has actually been Hush in the animated movie version of it. So yeah.
So spoilers. Whoops.
Yeah, we said spoilers for the Batman, not any other films. Oops.
We got some neat the chat angry that I spoiled Eternals for him. So spoiler palooza here.
Doing people a favour with that one. Blimey, not a good Marvel film. It's got to be said.
Yeah, it's been cool to kind of watch a couple of these videos with these little Easter eggs and things that they've hinted at in the movie that I didn't quite catch. Like the Hush thing I caught because it's so blatant in your face and everything, but even some others, little subtle hints in there.
You guys thinking that when he shot the stuff into his leg, that was the
Venom?
I thought that right away.
Yeah.
Because the green, they made it green. It's like it's so blatant.
It's like, what else?
Yeah.
I love seeing people online talking stuff and not having a clue what they're talking about. There's some videos where people have said that very same thing. It's Venom. It's like it's green. It's the drug and stuff. And people are like it's Batman don't have Venom before that. And it's like, dude, it's like a whole story. There's a whole story.
The precursor.
Venom. Yeah, it's just like Venom. Like Batman had Venom before Bane. He got addicted to it and came off it, which is why it's a perfect kind of forerunner to Bane, because he was strong enough to get off the drug and yeah. Anyway, I think it was.
Even back to my issue with him taking too much damage. Even them doing something like that, showing him taking something that gives some explanation for why he's able to do all of this. So another issue you can have with the film is that he takes too much damage with too little repercussions. Like knocked unconscious
in the face,
right here, like, tell me where it is. Conveniently hit the armor, knocked him out, brain damage, but the beautiful chin.
It was.
I'm going to assume that because he had his arms up like that, it just went boom.
I'm going to assume that.
But here,
Batman,
not here.
Batman doesn't take damage from explosions, boys. But no, it was the first time that I watched it. The explosion immediately paired with him being unconscious in a room of cops and nobody removed his mask. That was where I was like.
You know, I'd have liked.
The next thing that happens is that he does the raccoon suit. Has a violent crash at the end of it. And I was expecting like maybe a scene of him recovering for a day or something, because he's like hobbling away. It's like really violent and kind of plays like a laugh in the movie because it's such a tense film.
Yeah.
No, he's fine the next day.
What did
No
you
brain
think about
damage
the,
at all.
what did
Do you
think
know
about
what
the
I've liked? Just in that when he wakes up in the police station, just touching on what you said, I would have loved a callback to Nolan's Dark Knight, where we actually see one of the police officers trying to take the mask off, and they get like an electrical shock.
Yeah.
I just think that's a nice touch that kind of dispels all those kind of take it off kind of thing. But because they didn't, you're left with that question. Well, why didn't?
Yeah.
And the only answer, the only answer is Gordon. Basically, Gordon is the one who's kind of.
Oh no, yeah, I didn't harp on it at all. It was just
Yeah.
the moment the first time that I watched it, I was like, that was convenient. But
Well, that's why I gave it the F-. It would have just been an
exactly,
F.
exactly. What did you think about the wingsuit? We'll start with Sean.
You know, it seemed kind of goofy. I wouldn't do it, but I also, it wasn't something that was. It wasn't something I felt worth mentioning in any of my reviews. Since you're asking, like him being like, "Yay!" Like, okay, like I'm sure some people love. They want Batman. He's a
I'm gonna
bat.
need your
He's flying.
voiceover.
But
I'm gonna need your little sound clip of wee, like added onto the film. Like as soon as he just goes, wee, then- Brian, how did you like it? Because
I loved it.
You loved it.
yeah, so like, I don't want to spoil anyone's fun. If you love yay Batman, I don't. But like,
just
it's not worth. That's not like him getting shot 1,000 times. Actually bugs me. Him doing his little suit. I was like, whatever.
Do you think it's going to be
what I didn't.
a staying thing, or that was just like proto Batman? Like
That's proto. The thing is that thing actually exists. Like there's a music video by a band called Temper Trap, most famous for Sweet Disposition. I can't remember the name of the song that the video's to, but it's literally just it's all footage recorded of the group of people using those things and literally just doing that through rock faces and stuff, and it's just amazing. But yeah, I thought it was great. The only thing I didn't like about that scene is going back to what Sean said about taking too much damage. Could he not have just hit the bus and then slid onto the road? Instead, he hits the bus, swings up, cracks that bridge, and you're like, "Oh, you're dead. You are dead. You are dead." So yeah, I don't care how much armor you've got on, you are mush right now. So yeah, that like I'd have liked it if he'd have hit the bus, skimmed off, and then hit the road. But the whole it's like, that's too much. But no, the actual flight when he goes up and then he drops off, and then the camera is literally on the back end of him, and it's just awesome. I don't like heights. I don't like heights because I don't like the loss of control. So whenever I'm in a scene like that in a movie, especially in an IMAX, and the chairs are shaking with the audio and everything, yeah, that really got me kind of sweaty palmed, but in the best kind of most exhilarating way. So
Wait,
yeah,
in the
I
movie,
loved it.
the way it plays out, he zips himself up, and he's been like literally running towards gunfire the whole film. He zips this up, and he like pauses for a second when he looks down. The one time he had some moment of like fear, it's
First time he's done it, I guess.
Say, I took that as the first time he's ever actually flown, because when he first gets to the roof, he's like, "Oh shit!" and then he does the little thing. So I like that touch. I'm going to appreciate it much more if he eventually gets traditional bat, a bat cape to some form. I thought the Batman Begins gave a pretty grounded explanation for how the cape works. So I would like to eventually get to that. But for the one sequence, I actually kind of liked it. People call it the squirrel suit. I like the squirrel suit.
Yeah. The thing is, it's just the reason I like it is because the squirrel suit exists. This isn't something they've made up for a film. It literally exists. You can do that with it. So for me, it's like you can't get any more grounded than using something that exists. So.
Sean Sheridan, The Batman is the best Batman movie in terms of Batman as the sole focus, where The Dark Knight is the best Batman movie in terms of being a good
goof film.
A goof film. I agree, it's a goof film. It's my second favorite Goofy movie besides a Goofy movie.
Exactly.
I guess that's another great thing about the movie. It is so Batman-centric.
And that's something that I needed so much because, like, I for as much as I love The Dark Knight, for as much as I really love Dark Knight Rises, I would never say that I love the Burton films, but I could certainly get some entertainment out of it. It always feels like his villains, with the exception of Batman Begins, his villains always overtake the movie. You remember The Dark Knight because of the Joker. You remember Dark Knight Rises because of Bane. You know, Nicholson, that's his movie. Don't even talk about Michael Keaton.
He's literally not even in it for like 30 minutes. The first 30 minutes.
Exactly. And so I love the way that in this movie, despite having someone who is an absolute scene stealer like Penguin, despite having a Catwoman that people are already debating whether or not she's the best Catwoman, despite having Riddler, I agree, Brian, despite having Riddler just be a villain that just glues your eyes to the screen, they always feel like they're there to serve Batman's story and his arc and his journey. It never feels like Batman introduces us to these villains and now it's their movie. And so I love that because that's always been a gripe that I had. I'm like, I signed up for a Batman movie. Where's Batman in this? No rebuttals. Awesome. Moving on. Now, let's talk about...
the detective Batman focus, that's what the trailers promised, and they really delivered that.
Yes.
And that's also one of the reasons kind of helps of, like, when you have Robert Pattinson has so much baggage for so much of the general public because of obviously Twilight, and then you can't see that. You literally, like, if you watch this movie and you're like, oh, sparkly vampire boy, that's on you. You're choosing to see that.
I had at least 2 or 3 comments the first couple of days when I released my spoiler-free review. They're like, I'm refusing to watch this. I can't see Edward Cullen. And I'm like, you're a moron then. Sorry.
It's like I've not seen Edward Cullen in a movie for a good 10 years because I've been too busy watching all the other Robert Pattinson movies that he's been doing where he's been completely different and acting.
So
and
you didn't rewatch Twilight in anticipation for the Batman? Was that just me?
Afraid not.
Yes.
Afraid not. Reviews forthcoming.
Exactly. So yeah, that's I mean, I never had that problem for the first moment that I actually had a guy when I was working the day that they announced that. I think he said that he was talking to his friend. He's like, yeah, my friend's got a Batman tattoo. He's already looking into getting it removed because they cast. And I'm like, it just the level that people go to for things like that drove me nuts. I thought Robert Pattinson was phenomenal. I still want to see his version of Bruce Wayne. That's the only piece of the puzzle that I need to see before I can really properly rank him. I had him at 3 just because Ben Affleck and Bale, we have the whole pie there. We have the whole picture.
Yeah.
We don't quite have that with Pattinson yet, but what we do have, his version of Batman, I absolutely love. Now, one thing that has been the talk of the town with this movie is the Batmobile. And that first trailer that they showed it, man, like I'm somebody who's pretty critical on the Batmobiles because like they go a little bit too far sometimes. And it was funny. It shocked me how much you and I aligned when we did our rankings to the point where we used the same clips. And I laughed when I saw it. I was like, man, get out of my head. But we said the same thing with Ben Affleck's Batmobile because for as balls out as Zack Snyder goes with his designs and everything, I thought the same thing. I'm like, kind of feels like he wanted to do the Tumbler, but just make it more like a car, and we've seen that. What I loved about this version of the Batmobile was just how stripped back it was. I love muscle cars, and so the fact that this is essentially just a souped-up muscle car with a jet engine. There's no guns, there's no gadgets, there's no cloaking devices or any Bond stuff in it. It's just a car. That scene,
but a badass car.
That scene. When he kicked that engine on and you just heard the jet, and all you see is the silhouette of it and the almost like the Christine from John Carpenter, the eyes of the car with the headlights, and Penguin's just looking at it like, what the hell is that thing? And then he just does that little jump thing where he's like, and goes towards him, and then Penguin hightails it to his car. Like, I felt that car in my body with the way that the sound was in the IMAX theater.
Just, oh man, like. There's one of the experiences I'll always remember of my first watch on this film will be like a bit like with the pencil trick on, like, if you ask me what was the first thing you remember about Dark Knight and your first experience, it's just the reaction to the pencil trick.
Oh yeah,
because that was literally Joker's introduction. I know we have the scene at the beginning but this is where we get to see him kind of interact with a whole room full of people who think he's nuts, and he does the pencil trick, and the whole room erupted, and it was just, you instantly knew this was going to be special.
Yeah.
That's what I always remember. And I know that if somebody asked me 10 years from now, what's the bit in the film you remember, it's this moment. I mean, the whole scene is incredible. It's a brilliant action set piece. Just the way it's filmed and everything. The camera's in close quarters all the time, so it's getting the whole scene. It's getting everything that's on the edges of the scene, but it's doing it via a close-up. So you'll be on a close-up of Penguin's face, but you're seeing all the action in the background, this and the other. So it's doing both a close-up and a wide shot at the same time. It's amazing cinematography. But just that moment when you sat there, you know it's coming. Oh, it's a Batmobile, and it starts up, and then my whole seat was literally shaking from the sound, and a smile, just one of them uncontrollable smiles that just like came up on my face, and then it turned into this belly laugh. I literally laughed. Just like it just poured out, and then the guy sat next to me who I didn't know, he just started doing the same thing. He laughed, I think, because I laughed, and you sat there experiencing something, and it's that thing about cinema. That's what you go cinema for. It's like, sitting next to a stranger that you've never met before, and you both have that same reaction because you've just watched something special. It's like that whole sequence for me was just incredible, and every time that car hit something and just carried on plowing through, and it was like an extension of the rage that was coming out of the Batman. Like, the vengeance and the rage that this character is filled with. That car is just an extension of that, but on the road. So I loved it, absolutely loved it.
Yeah, like you said, all the shot choices were awesome. Just the way that they filmed him going in and out of traffic. I mean, we've seen car chases a dime a dozen, hundreds of them, but this felt like gritty. It felt like you were in there, and like even the shots where the explosions happen, and like it's close up on Penguin's face, and he takes up like the right third of the screen, and the rest of it's just fire. I got you, and then just in the rear view mirror, it comes through. Man, and then he hits it, and they do the little slide thing where it's on the back of the car, and you just see the Penguin's car like toppling over. There was so much awesome camera work all throughout this movie, but that in particular was something where just that whole sequence. I've never seen a Batman movie where the most talked about sequence was the car. It's always the fight scene. I would have bet money when I saw the first teaser that when he just wrecks that guy on Vengeance, that would have been the scene everybody would have talked about, but it was the car. And I don't know what was you've seen it 3 times now, Sean. What was the 3 theater experiences that you had with the Batmobile introduction? Was it all what we saw on our first, where just the whole theater just like shook when that engine kicked on?
A little bit more varied, because it was a press screening you couldn't bring a guest. Normally at press screenings you can bring a friend, so kind of you get that brings a different energy to the room than when
everybody's all serious and quiet.
Yeah, everyone's separate from one another. And then the second one was the IMAX fan screening, and so then you had a lot more energy in the room when that happened.
Yeah.
But the one I remember most is the third showing, where my lady friend was next to me, and we were in the literal theater where we saw Fast 5 over 10 years ago now, I guess. It was one of my favorite theater experiences. People in that area like their muscle cars. And so does my wife. Like when we saw Fast 5 10 years ago in that theater, the parking lot was filled with muscle cars. So then engine starts firing up, and my wife, I mean, she's just like holding her breath. I can't believe this. And then that was the one where the audience started to get a little bit wild. But that's Pflugerville, Texas, with a P at the beginning of it. Pflugerville, Texas. They love their cars, so they were quite excited about it.
Monster truck rallies.
My thought was like, well, this is impractical. He's letting them know he's there, so he probably should have done it. He's much more analytical than these Neanderthals around.
Batman should be dodging these 18-wheelers.
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah, that was still that's one of the things that I really want to go back and see it a third time with, and see the theater reaction again too, because that was the one moment, if anything, where everybody kind of erupted in the theater. Another one that surprisingly got a lot of reaction both times that I saw it, as far as like comedy, because the movie's not funny, but there's moments of really well placed, subtle, natural comedy in it that breaks it up a bit. And one of the scenes that both times I saw it got the
Punching
most
Garden.
yeah, got the most
Punching
reaction.
Garden, yeah.
Just him doing that, like, you gotta punch me in the face. Get out of here. And everybody was just laughing, and it's all like, it's all in his
Which scene are
delivery.
you talking about?
When he punches Garden in the face.
Oh yeah, okay. So, I thought you said punching Garden. I was like, punching Garden?
Punching Garden.
You guys have gone crazy. Yes.
Yeah, so
It's just because they've both got to pretend that they're having a, like, I don't like you right now. I don't like you right now. But really, it's just like, you gotta distract me and get the hell out of here. Punch me in the face. Who's that guy with a broken nose? That guy? He's a detective.
And then all and we know it's coming. We know he's going to punch him, but we don't know when. And so then when it happens,
he waits. But then it's the follow up later as well, and then he's like, "You could have pulled your punch, man." It's like, I did.
I love the interaction between Batman and Gordon in this, and again, tall order with Gary Oldman. I mean, arguably one of the greatest actors that will ever don the screen. Brilliant take on the character, and his relationship with Batman was great in that trilogy. But the little bit that we've got introduced to with these two characters, I loved it. It was almost like not in the comedy sense, but it was almost like a buddy cop film. With their interactions, and even whenever they go to the orphanage and he's got the shotgun, no guns. That's your rule, not mine. Like little stuff like that. That's just, it was so awesome. Like Jeffrey Wright is a great actor, and he's somebody that's always in the background. He's always like kind of a character actor, and he's like a chameleon. Like you see him in roles where he's playing like Peoples Hernandez in the Shaft movie, and then
he was in 300.
Yeah, 300.
Like,
he's right next to James Bond, and then he's doing things like the HBO show with the robots. Westworld. I was gonna say Waterworld. I'm like, that's not right. Westworld.
Wrong sci-fi. Sci-fi.
Exactly. And now he's doing Gordon, and I loved it. I loved their early relationship. I loved how they didn't have to set up anything. It's just like everybody in the police department doesn't like this guy, doesn't trust him, doesn't want him around. Gordon's just the one that kind of speaks for him. It's like, I think there's something here, and that relationship that they have was just great.
There's a quote as well when they're going into the orphanage, the old orphanage, and Gordon pulls his gun and Batman's like, no guns. And he's like, that's your thing, not mine.
So awesome. Even the little tiny one that's kind of a running joke with Batman, where they're watching the footage that Riddler has put together, and he's like, his next target's Bruce Wayne, and then he looks next to him and he's gone, hey. That's the one moment, but that's kind of a running joke where Batman just in the wind just disappears. And so I love Jeffrey Wright. And then we've already got people saying it in the comments too. And then the other one that got a lot of laughs multiple times was Colin Farrell's Riddler. Or, I'm sorry,
Penguin.
And I'm somebody who has never liked the character of Penguin, any iteration. Like I appreciate the weirdness of DeVito's version, even though that's not Penguin. You know, that's a really Tim Burtonized version of Penguin. But whether it's the animated series, the video games, anything, I just never really got the appeal of Penguin. I'm like, this short little portly guy with an umbrella, like, why is he A-list? Why is he one of the popular ones? And then I saw Colin Farrell's version of the character, and I'm like, I want more of this. Like, I was instantly glad that they said that he's doing an HBO Max series. I'm like, give it to me now.
That's the comic book version. Well, it's a comic book version. It's like I'm very careful about that because like people always say that's not one from the comics. It's like, which comics are you talking about? Are you talking 70s sci-fi? Are you talking 60s camp? Are you talking 80s dark grit?
Yeah.
Like, explain to me how it's not the comic.
Rebirth?
So screw you for saying that. Yeah, I just. It's like people always say this. It's just like, Batman and Robin, not a great movie, but for many people,
it is a very faithful Batman movie, because to them, Batman is Adam West, and it's like so you know, don't tell me that's not Batman. It is. It's just the Batman you don't care for, which is fine. It's fine to say that. But yeah, Penguin for me in this film is the Penguin I like from the comic books, from like certainly early 90s onwards, Chuck Dixon kind of era, gangster. Yeah, that's definitely the Penguin I like, and Farrell, flipping heck.
I'm gonna be upset if there's not at least like a nomination for whether it's the makeup or him. Like that was the most transformative performance I've seen in a long time. Despite the fact that he's in about this much of the movie.
Yeah.
If I didn't know Colin Farrell was in that, that would have never been a guess of mine. I would have left.
If you'd show me the film, show me the film without seeing it, I literally would have been saying, so he was playing the Penguin because he was awesome.
Yeah. That's exactly what happened during my car ride home when I went to go see it the second time in Waco, Texas, 90 miles from my house. With my friends, we get out of the movie, and my buddy, who is a movie guy, he knows movies, he knows actors. He doesn't follow movie news the way that we do to know who's in the cast of the movie. Yeah. But he knows who Colin Farrell is, very much so. And he watched the movie, and we're driving home, and he goes, man, whoever that guy was they cast to play Penguin, I don't know who he was, but that guy is awesome. I don't know if he's been in anything else. I don't know where they found it, because I was like, that's Colin Farrell. He's like, what? That was Colin. How is that Colin Farrell? And he's like, I mean, I guess that makes sense because they played like an intro before the IMAX fan screenings. And Colin Farrell's just sitting there, and he's like, I was wondering, like, what's Colin Farrell doing here? He's not in the movie. That's him. And that's what I've been thinking about, of like all the ways that us as fans always have this vision of who they should cast, and we do our fan cast. Like, John Krasinski should be Reed Richards in the Fantastic Four, and this person. We always have our fan cast, but it's always like the most obvious, superficial version of it. Yeah. And we can't see what they're seeing. Because you would never in a million years fan cast handsome Colin Farrell as Penguin. On so many levels, you would never do that.
No.
And then you see it, and you're like, that is incredible. That is remarkable. What they did and what he did. It's just transformative is the proper word for it.
I remember
you
when
do not see the actor.
Yeah, I remember when the Fandom teaser first came out, and we already knew that Colin Farrell was playing the Penguin at this point. It had already been announced. And we watched the trailer, and you only see Penguin for two little snippets. One in the car where he's like, this guy's crazy. And then another one where he's standing there. And I remember most people that watched that trailer were like, damn, I was kind of hoping we were going to see the Penguin, because they were looking for Colin Farrell's face. And then I remember a lot of people on Twitter like, this is Colin Farrell, and they'd show like screenshots. And I remember just everybody being like, holy shit, that's the Penguin? That's Colin Farrell? That's crazy good makeup. And that was the one.
And then you see the performance is just as transformative.
Yeah,
of like what you normally expect from it. Yeah.
But that's what makeup allows. I think when so many actors say it, that when you do a character where you get to put on a mask, it lets you loose.
Yeah.
Because it's hiding everything, which means you're free to just be anything. And I just think which is why the whole fan casting thing is just it's so nonsensical, because what they can do these days for actors to enhance what it is they do. Like it's a bit like CGI. You think about Andy Serkis in the Planet of the Apes movies. It's not just a special effect; it's a performance, but it's the marriage of the two. And it's like what they can do with effects, with makeup, and that. You can cast whoever you want these days, just as long as and like you say, Sean, it's like you're not privy to the meetings that go into what's the film we're trying to build here. So if you say, oh, but Danny DeVito's perfect casting for the Penguin, yeah, he was for Tim Burton's movies. He would be well out of place in this film. It's like, because they found the actor and they built the part around the actor from the ground up. So it's just that's why I don't like to try and say, well, who would you cast as this? But I don't know, because I'll probably be wrong, to be honest.
Oh yeah, I know. Yeah, and to the point where people go negative on it, and that same passion too. Like even just talking about the Batman, like people were really negative on Robert Pattinson because they're like, wait, the sparkly guy, and then like you start talking about great Batman, like there's people that say Michael Keaton's the greatest of all time, but he would have been terrible for the Zack Snyder films. And so
The thing is,
you
how
never know
many
what the
how many times in
interpretation is.
history does it need to happen? You know what I mean? Michael
It'll never
Keaton,
stop.
10,000 signatures to try and get him removed from the film. Now he's hailed as like one of the best Batmans ever. Heath Ledger, what? The dude from 10 Things I Hate About You and Knight's Tale playing Joker? I don't think so. Anne Hathaway as Catwoman? Are you kidding me? She was like flipping Princess Diaries and stuff. Ben Affleck as Batman? Are you taking the mick? Now highly regarded on Wonder Woman. What, you're gonna put Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman? She's not even got any muscle on her. Look at her, despite the fact she was in the Israeli army. It's just like, and then Robert Pattinson. No, I'm not watching Twilight Boy. It's just like time and time again, every
And then on the
time.
opposite side of that, when they're like, Jared
Daniel
Leto's
Craig's
playing
hair is the
Joker,
wrong
and-
color.
Yeah, Jared Leto's playing Joker. They're like, oh, he's going to do great.
That's right. That's right. The one that people are like, "Oh man, this is brilliant casting Jared Leto." That's the one that nobody likes.
Yeah, it's hilarious. But yeah, he was the one. He was the standout for me, and it's funny because I would have never expected that, just because I kind of have this bias against the Penguin as it is. But I can't wait to see more of him. Like, arguably, he might be my favorite villain in the movie, just because he's the one where I'm like, I want to see more of him. Like, if that's all we see of Catwoman, it's not. But if that's all we see of Catwoman, that was good. If that's all we see of Riddler, that was good. But don't you dare tell me that's all we see of Colin Farrell, because there's way more meat on those bones. And so, speaking on Zoe Kravitz now.
Well, just before you do, there's a couple of super chats. I don't know if you want to. There's a
Sean, is that a vape?
What do you think is a vape?
I think you had like a razor blade or something in your head. It was like that yellow thing.
Oh yeah. I keep a box cutter nearby. Like
that is so not a vape.
I would. It's my Joker origin story.
Sean's always got something random in his hands while we're doing live streams. It's like, what is it now? Oh, it's matches. I'm just burning things while we're talking. Eddie, did anyone notice how Robert Pattinson's Bruce Wayne is so somber and like Batman? Because every time we see him, Warren's a somber response. He was at the funeral confronting Falcone. We never see Bruce. Well, yeah, that's kind of the thing that makes this interpretation of Batman stand out, is that Bruce Wayne is kind of a dead part of his personality. And there is some people that aren't quite understanding the deliberate choice for that. I had some people try to say that I was hypocritical because I said George Clooney, his performance is the same whether he's Bruce Wayne or Batman, but I didn't say that about Robert Pattinson. And I'm like, well, the difference is George Clooney is trying to do different things and it just fails. Robert Pattinson, it's a deliberate story choice that Bruce Wayne is something he has left behind, and that's
the thing. Thing with George Clooney is like the Batman persona is supposed to be different to the Bruce Wayne persona at that stage in his career. Yeah, but when it's exactly the same either way, I don't know if you.
I'm Batman.
Yeah, hey, that's your Bruce Wayne. Eat some ice. There's one from Daniel Skinner as well that I think you missed. It's a $5 one. It says, my 15-year-old cousin Melissa has a question for the three of you to answer. What were your thoughts on John Turturro's performance as Falcone?
I thought he was brilliant. I love Turturro whenever he does dramatic stuff. Ever since I saw The Night Of, especially, that's where I'm like, man, I want to see this guy do more. So, what does that sound?
Sorry, it's my mouse.
Oh. But I thought he was great because he was good in Batman Begins as far as the interpretation of Falcone or Falcone, however you want to pronounce it. They always change their mind. But what I loved about this version was that he really felt scary. He felt like somebody that you believe the whole city would bow to. And I like the way that they do this really subtle mirror between him and Batman, to where he's always underground or in this club. He's always in shadow, with the exception of that funeral scene. He's always in the darkness. You see him in the club when Catwoman's doing her little spy thing, and he's like clouded in darkness behind Penguin whenever she sees him in his little penthouse. And so the way that they kind of frame the character visually throughout the movie, paired with the way that Turturro plays him, this really quiet confidence to where he doesn't really feel like he needs to worry about anything because everybody works for him. Even when he's getting arrested, he's like, "Don't you know you work for me?" I loved it. I love the way that they utilized him. When you have a movie where you got Riddler, Penguin, and Catwoman, and Falcone, random mob boss guy, is a big standout, that tells you how brilliant it was. So, yeah, I'm doing my ranking for villains. Me and Brian are doing it. That'll be released tomorrow. He's pretty damn high up for not a animated rogues gallery character.
Yeah. I just there's something I noticed on a second watch, which is that a lot of the morally bankrupt people in this film, despite their moral bankruptcy, still love their families. You know, we open up on this corrupt mayor, and he's playing with his kid.
Yeah.
So whatever kind of person this guy is, he's clearly not on the level. He's done bad things. You still see a genuine love there for his child, and then you've got Gil, who, you know, he chooses to die.
Yeah.
Because he would rather die than have the focus turned on his own family. So, like, however despicable he is, you know, he's a dirty man. He's not on the level. He's corrupt, and yet he still loves his family. Falcone is the one where there's none of that. Mm-hmm. He is as cold as ice. He cares about number one. That is it. When his own daughter is in the room, he don't give two sods about it.
Less than a minute after finding out that she is his daughter, he's just like, nope.
Yeah, pretty much. And it's just, and I just felt that was a juxtaposition between him and the rest of the corruption in Gotham. Like, he's the root of all the corruption. So there's no love left in this guy at all.
In a very gnarly way to give context to how scared people are of Falcone, where they're like, your head is going to explode. Whatever, let it happen, because the alternative is worse. What?
Yeah.
Sean, any thoughts on Falcone?
I agree with you guys. He was the worst part of the movie, kind of dragged it whole down. I would have given it a D-. He brought it back down to that F. No, I mean, you know, of course, John Turturro's great, and I think one of the things that great actors can do is you have these really despicable characters that are evil, but they still have a charm to them. Mm-hmm. And you're tense. You know something's up. You know that at any moment this guy could get killed. But there's something about them that's still very likable in this weird way. And that's what great actors can bring to parts like that.
Yeah, 100% agree.
I think Turturro went through this kind of period around like Transformers and whatnot, where he was playing a lot of these goofy roles.
He was in Adam Sandler movies.
And I think because of that, I stopped crediting him really as an actor. It was fairly recently when I watched a film called Quiz Show, and he's in that, and he plays a real life character, and I thought he was fantastic in it, really fantastic. And then now seeing this fairly soon after that, I'm back on that train where I'm like, no, actually, he's a damn good actor. This is the guy who worked with the Coen brothers so many times. It's like, he's great in it, really great.
Absolutely. One more super chat. Cross Caldwell, give me one reason why Joaquin's Joker wouldn't fit phenomenally in this universe. Also, thanks for the Savannah recommendations, Cody. No problem. Well, I wouldn't
90 years old.
That being said, I saw somebody, I don't know if it was a video on Twitter or something that I passed by. There's a moment in the funeral scene where Bruce Wayne is standing there, and there's this guy off to the side. He's just kind of talking to himself, talking down to all like the elites. And he's like, yeah, this guy, he got what he deserved.
Yeah.
And even though that's a very common phrase, that could also have been a very deliberate thing about, like, you know, that was kind of the Joker's catchphrase in Joker was, you know, you get what you deserve. Even the guy that eventually killed Martha and Thomas Wayne said it. And so there's a small chance, you know, don't rule it out until we get there, that maybe those two films do exist in the same universe. The tone certainly matches up. I wouldn't be, I'm giving it like a 15% chance, but I wouldn't rule it out until it's ruled out. I mean, you could very easily have Barry Keoghan be like the guy that takes up the mantle of the Joker. I mean, you got the people that he beats up in the beginning of the movie that look like Joker thugs, and so there's this lived-in Gotham with this history that we haven't fully explored yet. So small chance, but even just talking purely fan fiction, like Sean said, it wouldn't make any sense. He would be an old man. You'd never see those two fight, and
when the timelines are so established in both of them, Joker is like 1980.
Yeah.
And then
back when this was rumored to be in the 90s, that would
it would. You could make a very strong argument in that case. But then when in the case of this movie, like they make it clear the Waynes were killed 20 years ago in the early zeros.
Yeah.
Like it sets the timeline 20
Yeah, you're right.
years.
Never mind. 0%
It just doesn't work. Just doesn't work.
I haven't done the math yet.
There's a super chat you missed as well from Media Craver.
Oh, whoops.
So
Awesome stream. Great thoughts on the movie as always. Thank you. Yeah. So well, here's one more. I want to chat away. So yeah, I mean, I think if the timelines would have lined up tonally, this would have made perfect sense to have Joaquin's Joker in it. Obviously, that's not the direction that they decided to go. We're going to see what their direction is whenever we eventually get there. I don't know if I think there's just as much of a chance that the Joker is going to be a major character in the second film as I do that he's just going to get another, small little teases in that film to be built up to eventually be a big part of the third film. It feels like this universe is focused more on building out a large rogues gallery more so than we're going to have one villain, one big, standout villain per movie. And so that seems to be the direction that they're going, especially now that they've kind of abandoned the Gotham City PD show concept, and now they're doing an Arkham Asylum show. Very easy way to build out some origins and some context to a lot of smaller villains so that, when we do get them in the movies, if you do your homework, you don't have to have all this exposition. So that seems to be the direction that they're going here, where we're going to get a very lived-in Gotham with dozens of villains where we only need to see them a little bit, and it's not going to feel overstuffed. That term that's been popular since Spider-Man 3. So yeah, I agree. Joaquin Phoenix could have been. Obviously they decided not to do that. Just wanted to say how much I love the Batman was still in his infancy and still trying to iron out how he will move forward as the Batman. That being said, I hope the sequel villains stay grounded. What do you think? Well, they're going to have to. It wouldn't make any sense if they do this dark and serious of a tone just for the next movie to have, Poison Ivy having vines coming out of the city or anything like that. It wouldn't
Different
work.
perspective. Matt Reeves says he wants Mr. Freeze. Let's J.K. Simmons this. Arnold Schwarzenegger returns. Ice puns and all. Everything else remains. The same tone, same vibe. But Mr. Freeze is the same costume. The same...
just wandering around.
Back
Just
in the
freezer. I'd pay to see that movie.
I would too. Unpopular opinion, but I think that Arnold Schwarzenegger's Mr. Freeze is absolutely perfect for that movie.
That's what I said in my ranking. Like, hey, everyone else, like Uma Thurman miscast, but like Arnold's not miscast if you're gonna do that.
Yeah. He's too smart. Like I even use clips in my Batman and Robin review where they show like everybody doing press junkets, and he's like, "This is the most fantastic script I've ever read." And it's so funny because it's like, dude, you're way too smart. Like, there's a great Bill Burr bit where he talks about how great of a man Arnold Schwarzenegger is back whenever he was caught cheating and they were trying to bring him down. And he's like, this guy came to a foreign country, figured out how to talk English, rose through the ranks in the bodybuilding, rose through the ranks of Hollywood, married a Kennedy. And so all these things, he's such a smart guy. He had to have known what movie he was in. He feels like if anybody in that movie knows exactly the cartoon they were in, it was Arnold. But yeah, what do I think? The sequel villains are going to have to be grounded. I mean, even if they try to do something like Mr. Freeze, it's going to be like the Riddler. It's going to be like Mr. Freeze we've never seen before. And I kind of want that. I need that character to be redeemed somehow. There's such a great story and such a great emotion to his motivations that could be a really compelling plot to a movie. But they're going to have to really be careful because you're going to have to wildly change things for it to fit in this reality, but not change things so much that you completely lose the character.
Well, they've done some real kind of, like, some people would argue this Riddler isn't recognizable to what they know, other than puzzles. I mean, he is essentially the Zodiac killer.
Yeah.
Which, again, depending on which era of comic books you go to, there's a story from the early 90s called Dark Knight, Dark City. It's a 3-part story in which the Riddler puts Batman through all this series of tests, and it gets really dark. There's like occultism in there, Like Riddler's proper tied up with the occult in it. And that to me is the one Riddler story I think of when I watch this film. So again, it's that thing where it's like, what are you going to touch on? It's just like you can spring influences from the 80 plus years of comic book history to create something entirely new, but which is also rooted in, oh yeah, I recognize the character.
It's
that
all
I know
about
in
keeping
that
the
bit.
heart of the character.
Yeah,
like the
the
heart
essence.
of the Riddler is a guy who is very high intellect, that likes
Yeah.
playing games with people, that uses
Yeah.
Batman as a pawn, and
Yeah.
has these riddles where he tries to, show him that I'm smarter than you. That's all
If
here.
if you go purely off surface stuff, then Nolan's Joker got it wrong, man. He didn't fall into a vat of chemicals.
Yeah, no chattering
he's
teeth.
he
What the hell?
hasn't got the it's what, so he got cut. That's how he got it, and we don't even get to find out how it happened. And he done it. His skin isn't bleached. He just puts makeup on. Hashtag not my Joker. It's just like, but
That's a good line.
once you once you watch the film and you see who that character is in essence, he's Joker. Same again with Bane, but it's just like that's what it's about capturing. It's about capturing whatever it is internally that makes that character who they are. Capture that. So if you look at Mr. Freeze, what is the thing that really kind of that is his body and soul? It's all about his wife.
Yeah.
It's all about his wife needing to fix her. He's got this. That's his end goal. He needs to fix his wife, and he just can't do it. So he's going to hold the world responsible. You know, that can play out in so many different ways that
Like
would
I
still
said,
be
you could have a
recognizable.
guy who is like, I'm just spitballing, a guy who's a
Yeah.
serial killer or whatever happens, and he freezes his victim. Like something to have the freeze element. There's got to be a
Yeah,
reason
yeah.
why you call him Mr. Freeze, but
Yeah.
he doesn't have to fall into a cryogenic pit. He doesn't have
No.
to have blue skin. He doesn't have to have a suit that keeps him below zero. You could play with those details a lot as long as he has a wife that's dying of this disease and he's trying
Yeah.
desperately to save her, and that's why he's turning to evil.
Yeah.
You've nailed the character. Just have fun with everything else. And so that's kind of my answer for this question, but I'll spitball it to you guys. Like, what's a villain that you do want to see for sure in the sequel? I'll start with Brian.
So many villains I'd like to see, but I'd like to dig out some unknown ones, and give them some airtime. Like, I mean,
Condiment King.
Condiment King, boom. I'd like to put Tallyman in there. I'd like to put the Reaper in there. It's like all the general public knew about Bane before The Dark Knight Rises was what we got in Batman and Robin. It's like, brrr. Yeah, it's just, and they're poles apart. It's just like, do that. Take some villains from the comic books that, you know, like the original Tallyman. There's actually been a couple versions of Tallyman, but the original version of Tallyman, he's got a very similar story to Bruce Wayne, but instead he's fallen off the abyss basically, and he kills people for a living. So he's a hitman, and I just think that you could make a film. I mean, I had an idea way back when I was like thinking about writing Batman movies and stuff, that to have Tallyman and Reaper in the same film, and it would be mobster based as well, so that all the villains around it would be mobster based. So while you've got this power struggle going on with Penguin and everyone like that, you have Reaper coming into the fray, who's knocking off mob bosses and stuff, and so the mob hire Tallyman to track him down and kill him, and then Batman gets caught in the middle. It's just like there's so many different villains from like I say 80 plus years of history, and what is it? We get the same 7, 8, 9, 10 villains every time. I don't need a new version of. Yeah. Anyway,
Sean, if you were in charge, who's the next villain?
I mean, Court of Owls is one that I thought was going to play into this one a little bit more. And they teased some things that could certainly be hinting in that direction, with the Riddler clues having owls on there and owl eyes. But if you're going to kind of do this very lived-in Gotham with a rich history, all sorts of ideas about everyone's corrupt. Court of Owls seems right up that alley.
I've heard that quite a bit as something, because a lot of people don't really even know what the Court of Owls is. It's a very big comic book storyline. But I think Robert Pattinson himself even said that. That was kind of his answer to the question, like, who do you want to fight next? So yeah, we will see. The funeral scene with Coulson and Batman might be the best scene in the entire film for me. Robert Pattinson, Paul Dano, and Peter Sarsgaard were all at the top of their game in that scene. I agree. Paul Dano he did that little cell phone thing like 200 times. I think there was an article about he filmed it himself, and so he wanted to do it one time where it starts with his face. He wanted to do it one time where he kind of comes into the frame. You came. And so he did that 200 different times before he was happy with it. Maybe overkill, but I thought it was great. So I agree. Subscriber mode. Aaron Klister, because Riddler knows who Batman is it possible the Riddler knew Bruce wouldn't know about the tool to rip up the carpet to reveal his plan to ensure his plan becomes successful? Well, he doesn't know who Batman is.
He doesn't know
whole
about
scene.
Yeah, there seems to be a lot of
was,
confusion there about that.
That whole scene was meant to play with the audience.
Yeah.
And Bruce Wayne.
Yeah. He doesn't know Bruce Wayne is Batman. It leads it builds tension on the idea that, oh crap, he knows. And then he says, we almost got him. We almost got Bruce Wayne. You know, it's oh crap, he doesn't know I'm Bruce Wayne. It's just like, so no, he doesn't know.
Yeah, and you see it all in Pattinson's face, because the whole time he's talking to him, Bruce, and he's just got like this face like, everything's over, this is it. And he goes, we almost got him, and he's like, and just does a subtle little eye change, like, wait, oh shit, you're not as smart as I thought you were.
And they even some little things, the way they revealed information of, he reads all the clues in the bat suit as Batman. And then when he gets the clue that says, I'll see you in hell, he doesn't have the suit on. Bruce Wayne reads that. It says, the note says to Batman.
Yeah.
It doesn't say to Bruce Wayne, but Bruce Wayne is the person we see read that. And so the memory in our head is a little bit different. So it clouds it a little bit. So it sets us up to misinterpret things the way that he does. Yeah. And so then when Batman shows up, I told you I'd see you in hell. That's what he told Batman. He didn't tell that to Bruce Wayne. Bruce Wayne was blown up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like the way that they did that. Even more on second watch, I liked how they set up certain things and sins of the father.
It's even better on third viewing. You really notice that by the third time you watch it in a week, you notice all the ways that they set up that misdirect. That's where I picked up on like that detail of like he grabs it, says to the Batman, and then you're like, Bruce Wayne is the image in our head. Like, because the second time I watched it, I was like, wait a minute, like, so he's saying I'll see you in hell. Like, where is this? How is this playing out? And the third time I was like, oh, Matt Reeves was messing with our memory.
Because if you look at all the previous victims, he's killed them all and left a note for Batman. So this was meant to be the same way. He was meant to kill Bruce Wayne, leave a note for Batman. It's just that it didn't go as planned. So, because he didn't know that Bruce Wayne is Batman. So, like...
There you go. Jack, love the stream, but I don't really see a world where Joaquin Phoenix's Joker works with this Batman. Even if the timelines were lined up, Phoenix still comes off as too frail to fight Mr. Vengeance. Well, I mean, we've already said that's not going to happen regardless, but one of the things about the Joker is that he's always supposed to be frail. Like, it's not about physical threat to Batman. It never was. It's about intellect and chaos and all of that. I mean, Heath Ledger wasn't any match for Christian Bale.
He needed dogs.
Yeah, exactly, and he still got his ass whooped. So it's never really about that. Sean Chandler, not my Brian Lomax. Manzana, hey guys, I was thinking Mr. Freeze could be a mob hitman a la the Iceman with Michael Shannon, who cuts and freezes his victims, and the mob has his wife. See? Very easily. Are we caught up? We are caught up. Okay, Zoe Saldana as Catwoman. I'll kick this.
Zoe Kravitz.
What movie did you watch?
You
got Adam Project on the brain.
See? Yes, exactly. Like, per my little comment before we went live about the electrical chair, it's so easy when you talk to say things that make perfect sense up here, and it's so wrong. Just like Waterworld earlier.
More and more I've been realizing just how much I say really dumb things, and I never catch it, because it makes, like, I'm just talking so fast, and then... Yeah, how many dumb things I said. I was editing a video a week ago, I was finishing editing a video that I'd shot a month ago. My highest grossing movies of all time, I shot it a month ago. And rewatching it, I was like, without the immediacy of just having recorded it, you only hear what you're saying. It's like, I said the 20th at the beginning. Like, it's all these.
I'm an idiot.
Whoops! And then immediately realize as soon as you're with other people, they pick up on it. Yeah, that's what we need producers hire each other producers to fix that problem.
Exactly. It's always fun whenever you catch yourself, because then you can make little jokes out of it. Like when we did 31 on 31, like I've said umpteenth times, Die Hard's my favorite film, and I call the villain Simon Gruber when I'm talking about Die Hard, and I'm like, how do you do that?
You're incompetent.
Yes, exactly.
I got you.
So Zoe Kravitz. Judge's ruling? Okay, yeah, Kravitz. Zoe Kravitz. Joey Kravitz. Wow. It's been a long day. Zoe Kravitz as Catwoman. I'm somebody who likes every interpretation we've gotten so far of the character, and
Halle Berry.
I don't acknowledge that film.
It really is tough to even call that a version of Catwoman because it's something so detached. It's Catwoman in name only.
But yes. So all but one interpretation of Catwoman I've really enjoyed. And so what I liked about this version was it felt like I'm not going to say comic book accurate, but like very grounded version of the character, to where there was certainly a little bit of interpretation here and there with the Nolan ones. Certainly a wildly different version with the Burton one, which I still think is the most iconic, is Michelle Pfeiffer. But what I liked that Zoe Kravitz brought is that the relationship between her and Bruce was very much on screen the whole movie. And it's very much a subplot, like this are they, aren't they little romance thing, but I like how subtle it was done, to the point where like there's a scene that maybe the second time that they're interacting where he's hooking her up with all this bat technology so she can go in, and he's like, look at me. And then he leans in and she's like, you get the butterflies for a second, and he's like, yeah, it looks good. And she's like, and the whole theater was like, oh, they're about to kiss. And so I like how they kind of play with that a little bit. And even to the point where they kind of bookend and leave or not bookend, but they leave the movie off with their relationship, kind of doing the Furious 7 thing where they go their separate ways until they eventually come back together. And so I really liked her version of the character because it's the least villainous version of Catwoman that we've seen thus far, to the point where when I put her in my villain rank, and I know I'm going to get a little bit of, she's not a villain. And so I liked what she did quite a bit. Sean, I think you're a pretty big fan of Michelle Pfeiffer as well. So being that she's
a pretty lady, yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, you're talking about as Catwoman.
Well, either one. I mean, however you interpret the question, carry on.
Still applies.
Yeah.
I mean, I think if you're just talking about just as a more straightforward rendition, this is a much more faithful in a classical sense than what Tim Burton did. Obviously, Michelle Pfeiffer, that was a very special performance that fit the story. Of course, all of that. But like you know, if you've read Batman Year One, you immediately start to recognize some of the imagery and that's kind of going on with this version of Catwoman. And I didn't even put her in my villain ranking, and not even in the sense that they changed the characterization. She was just used differently. They make it clear she can crack a safe. Like makes it clear she's up to no good. She's done all kinds of stuff, but in the case of the context of the story, she's not really a villain at all. She's never really adversarial towards Batman. They have some disagreements, and she tries to fight him. He didn't seem very interested in fighting her. He's just, wants to ask her some questions, but he's just blocking her. He's not trying to knock her out or anything. I really liked what they did with her. Of all of it fitting to what I've kind of been saying all along, but it just feels like such a lived-in, populated city with everyone having a deep history of, like, why is she there and why is she still there, and all of it makes sense with people's connections to one another. And then having that, she has that set of skills where she could come back and she could be trouble. She could come back and be someone that he's trying to take down, and maybe they've put everything in place, and just the dynamic between the two of them, that it felt, I bought much more into them than I did Christian Bale and Anne Hathaway. Where it seemed like that movie just like invested no time into the two of them, and it was like, and they end up happily ever after. Whereas this one, that you spend enough time with them to actually like buy into it, while at the same time being like, these two people don't belong together, but that doesn't mean that they wouldn't be attracted to each other.
I'm not even gonna say anything because I know Brian's already like he's formulating that. I disagree.
It's okay. People are entitled to their opinions, no matter how wrong they may be.
Did you really buy into Christian Bale and Anne Hathaway?
I did, yeah. Yeah, I did.
He was banging Talia al Ghul though when he was initially flirting with. He's
As
playing
much
two
as I
girls.
love,
Bruce Wayne is the player. Like, what's
as much
sorry,
as
rabbit trail.
as much as I genuinely adore The Dark Knight Rises, despite it being the least effective of the three, have either of you seen? I think it was College Humor, the little joke thing that they did on the scene where Talia reveals herself, and you got three different actors playing it, and Batman's like, "But wait." Like we totally had sex, and they keep going on, and Bane's like, "I don't want to hear this." And if anybody hasn't seen it, it's really raunchy. It's really raunchy. It borders on X-rated humor, but it is hilarious. It is hilarious. So that's just for everybody in general. Search that on YouTube.
My kids love that type of humor, so I'll share it with them once
Absolutely.
this is over with.
I'm a good dad. You're gonna have to explain what some terms mean, but
I'm excited about it. It's a great context.
Where the hell are we getting on? Catwoman. Go ahead, Brian.
So there's a not to harp on about Ben Shapiro, but one of the
did he hate the movie or something?
He hated
he
it.
did.
Yeah,
and he's a big defender of Snyderverse, and he basically said things like every MCU Rotten Tomatoes score needs to lose 20 points, and every DCU movie needs to gain 20 points. Mm-hmm. And then so he's someone that's voiced very strong opinions about comic book movies in the past, and so then he chimes in and immediately was like, "This movie hates Batman." I haven't watched this movie. I just saw the tweets.
Yeah, but the thing is, he turns everything into politics. Everything is you can't just review the movie and go along with the story. It's like, so Selena Kyle at one point she drops this line that it's all the rich white kind of guys.
Oh, and so I got so many comments of people saying the movie.
But the thing is,
I wanted to fucking strangle every single one of you.
The thing is, it's like for her character,
right?
That is something she would say.
Right.
That is a position she would hold.
Right.
Yeah.
So that is authentic.
Yeah.
It's not like it's not like so many films. It's like I get the whole woke argument.
His entire motivation in the film was to wipe out the white elite.
But he's white, so he's a villain. He's like all the good characters were black. It's like Gordon, the mayor, Selena Kyle, and it's just like whatever. It's just she is a person of colour who comes from a very poor, run-down area. She has been controlled all her life in a system that seemingly is operated by white people. I'm sorry, but it's like I'm not being an apologist or this, that, and the other, or I can understand a character coming from where she's coming from saying that.
Yeah.
Like when it feels appropriate, it feels authentic in that moment. Now, if you have a whole film that is pumping those lines out from every character and this, that, and the other, which we get, and I will look at them and I'll say, yeah, that's woke. I don't need to watch that. That's just so annoying. It's just pushing an agenda. Push. Can do without it. This does not fall into that category. Right. I'm sorry. And it's just that, and Ben Shapiro used that one line of dialogue to suddenly berate the whole film and say the film hates Batman. Again, showing he doesn't understand that no, actually this is 2 weeks of this man's life in a very particular moment in time. It doesn't hate Batman. It's just showing this is how he went from there to what we know is going to be. We know this is a trilogy. It's planned. Matt Reeves says he's planned a trilogy. He's got an idea for it. So there's growth. There's got to be growth from who he is in the first film to who we get in the last film. It's just like, people just jump on the hot. Like, I used to be one of those guys who was like, yeah, that's woke. But then even the terminology of woke started to annoy me after a while because people just, it's like it becomes this thing that people now they say it because it's fashionable to say it, and it's like, I'll say it if it actually applies, stop using it for every single damn thing that doesn't meet your political perspective. It's like other people have a right to have a world view that is shaped by the position they're in life. And Selena Kyle's position in life, I would say, justifies the reason she would say something like that. So, yeah.
My personal opinion, I can't like a movie if any of the characters hold a political position I disagree with. How can I like a movie if everyone in the movie doesn't agree? That was in particular... That F minus now. It just strikes me as it's just a really peculiar thing that a group of people latched onto. I understand it's there's like a hypersensitivity on both sides to a set of things. Yeah. And just slapping the same words onto it. So one side is slapping white privilege onto too much stuff, and then one side slapping woke onto way too much stuff. So like I had my Turning Red review referred to as a white privilege review. It's like, I just didn't like the movie. Like, what are we talking about? And then one line of dialogue in a movie from a character that would say something. Well, the whole thing is woke garbage. It's like, this is lazy arguments. It's a lazy way to perceive things that you're just... Everything falls into one of two categories. Like the world is nuanced, complex, and characters in movies should hold opinions you disagree with. It wouldn't make any sense if they didn't, and they should hold positions that you find annoying. They should
challenge you. It should challenge you. Yeah.
Or it just even be stupid. If you think it's a stupid worldview, characters will have stupid worldviews in this. Yeah. The Riddler's worldview is that Batman is his partner. Like all sorts of characters in this movie have dumb beliefs. So I don't. It's very. I thought it was very strange. Like I get if like you thought the line was cringe and it's bringing too much language. If you just thought it was cringe, but if you thought the whole movie was something, that's just seems like a very peculiar perspective to me.
Yeah. It's stupidity. It's stupidity in its purest form. Like you could almost like you put a face to everybody that does that, where they just throw woke out at everything, and they have the same fucking personality and look about them to where it's every tiny little thing offends them, and it's just like, oh my god, you people are insufferable. Like ever since the big one that did it for me, and I'm not going to go on this very long, was when Wrong Turn, the remake, came out, and everybody was calling it Woke Turn and bashing me because I liked the movie because a gay couple hold hands for 3 fucking seconds in the entire movie. And it's been that ever since. Like, you get a movie like Black Christmas 2019, there you go. That's woke. That is the definition of that term. Man. That is the film. That is the type of film.
I will happily say that is woke.
Yes, that is the type of film that you need to attack with that worldview. Any movie that stops for even a millisecond to say anything political, especially a movie like this that's almost 3 hours long, and you're talking about one sentence in 3 hours.
Wow.
And suddenly,
but then you make all the other puzzle pieces fit.
Yeah.
Like when I was sat there, it wasn't even a consideration that a few of the good guys in it are all black. It just didn't. It just like. But because you've heard that line of dialogue, you now need to make all the other puzzles of the big jigsaw fit. So you go, oh, they're all black. All the bad guys are white. All the good guys are black. It's like Alfred's white. He's a good guy. It's just like it's
these silly games that I feel like both sides kind of that are just too overly political do this game where they're watching a movie, counting and keeping a tally of how many people are of each race and gender and things like I would never watch a movie. Like I could imagine watching this film and some of it gets Googled. Like, this is woke garbage. They race swapped Catwoman. Race swapped Catwoman.
Have you read Batman Year One?
Have you read the comics? Like Eartha Kitt over 50 years ago. What are you talking about?
Yeah. Even the casting of Gordon, whenever they cast Jeffrey Wright, that was a big thing that I was saying, oh, whoa, we got to race swap everything. The dude was Gordon.
Yeah,
he's the best Gordon.
There's nothing about the character of Gordon that's distinctly white or distinctly black or anything. Like when you abandon what a character is. If you make Blade a Hispanic guy, you have race swapped it. You've destroyed what the character is. That's a huge piece of him.
I will say, just to call you out on that the original comic book version of Blade was white. So
So it does.
Forget everything that I just said.
So he did get race swap.
From the past.
Sorry,
Issue
but
57, Caucasian,
I thought I'd get there before somebody else did, but no. But it's just like, you know, Tonto in Lone Ranger. That is a race swap. You know, that you're using a white guy to play a Native American. That's when you should have issues. A character.
I heard that he was 1/16. I really heard that. Like, well, he's 1/16. Like, that's a bad argument right there.
Yeah, it's nonsensical. It's like, how many times have we said that, like, these days when people do reviews, it's either got to be the best film ever made or the worst film ever made.
Even
everything, everything these days is bipolar. You're either this or that, and if you sit somewhere in the middle, then you.
Especially with a Halloween film.
Yeah, pick a side. It's just like they won't. No one will accept you if you're not on. If you're on that side, they don't accept you, but they will. Vice versa. If you're in the middle, neither side accept you, and you just like they'll find a way to make you them. They'll find a way to make you them, and they'll find a way to make you them because you say one thing that sounds reasonable. Right.
And if you start using any kind of logic, they just pull any tiny little argument against it. Like I remember with the Wrong Turn one, where like the big thing that people were saying with throwing gay characters in a movie is just like, well, they're just putting it in there to check a box. And it's like, well, but the movie's not about them at all. Like, they literally die. One of them dies 15 minutes later. The other one we don't see again until later. They didn't do anything with them. They're just gay people in the world. And then they're like, well, that's exactly the point. If they're going to put them in there, why didn't they use them? And it's like, if they use
There's
them,
no
it'd be
winning.
No
winning.
Exactly. Anyway, last character we need to talk about a little bit, and then we'll start wrapping this up.
There's a couple of super chats. One in particular, $2 super chat there that I feel needs putting up on the bottom. It's going on the board by Francisco Gonzalez. It just definitely needs to be put up.
There you go.
Hey!
Great stream. Brian is my hero.
It doesn't happen often. I've got to take it when I can get it.
There you go. Daniel Skinner. I think we can all agree that Peter Sarsgaard was much better in the Batman than he was in Green Lantern. All that's left is Ryan Reynolds. I haven't watched that movie since it came out. I never thought that Green Lantern deserved all the hate that it got. It's certainly not great, but people act like everything was trash, and I'm like, there's plenty of movies that you guys praise that are not as good as this one.
Again, that's one of them movies that just sits in the middle, where it's like, I can be entertained by it. It's good. It's solid. But does it blow me away? No. But do I hate it? No. It's just. But it's got to be the best thing or the worst thing. What most people say the worst thing.
Yep, absolutely. AJ, can you guys see Dave Bautista as Bane? Yeah. Very easily.
Yes. I've been on this bandwagon for ages.
Going back to that superficial fan casting. Big muscle guy.
Yeah. No, but particularly because my idea of who Bane is in the comics, particularly the Chuck Dixon iteration of Bane, which I think is the one to aspire to. If you take what Dave Bautista was doing in Blade Runner 2049 and just apply that level of seriousness and whatnot to, I think, yes, and I've said that ever since I saw him.
I think he's been kind of campaigning for it for a while too.
He has, yeah.
Me.
Yeah. He wants the role of Bane. Yeah.
He's interesting too, because like there's certain time, like I didn't love Army of the Dead, but he's interesting because he's this wrestler turned actor that only works with like really prestigious filmmakers. Like he's not he did a couple of ones. He did the one where he's with the little girl. It does the Hollywood paycheck thing, but for the most part, he's going for like Villeneuve and Nolan, and like he wants to work with those types of directors. And so it's interesting to watch his career thus far, because there's been so many wrestlers turned actors that's just like a bad joke, with the exception of like The Rock. He's the one that made it, where he's the next one where it's like, that's a really, where The Rock has gone ultra, everything has to be popcorn blockbuster. Dave Bautista seems like he's really particular about wanting to work with specific filmmakers, which is very interesting.
When someone made some comment, or I don't remember where this was, but like they should do like a movie with The Rock, John Cena, and Dave Bautista. Dave Bautista responds, "No thanks, I'll pass." And it's like, okay.
That tells you everything right there. Like, oh, easy little buddy comedy film. No.
I'll pass.
Yeah. Pattinson's performance in Batman or Lighthouse. Well, I'm somebody that does not operate on the wavelength of Lighthouse, so this is not even a comparison to me. I'll take Batman. Brian, you would be somebody that would be fascinating to hear that answer.
I still can't bring myself to watch The Lighthouse. All the footage I've seen from it, I'm just like, I really don't think this is for me.
The Lighthouse. This is not meant to insult anybody that genuinely likes the movie. I'm not talking about you. But The Lighthouse is one of those movies that brings out the pretentious crowd to where you don't automatically hail it as this artistic vision of the century, then you're lower intelligence.
That's what it feels like when I watch little bits from it.
I watched it, dude, and I'm just like, I don't get what you're doing. I just genuinely don't. This does not operate on my wavelength at all. I don't understand. Like I can appreciate the artistry, the bold choices, the black and white, the 4:3 ratio, and the performances that you're going for. You put it all together. This is something I don't want to experience ever again. And yeah, Sean, obviously The Lighthouse.
Of course, because I thought just Robert Pattinson had such great chemistry with the mermaid in it versus his chemistry with Zoe Kravitz. And there's a lot of really good farts. Even better. The line about the farts was really what won me over.
Yeah.
The farts! All the farts! What?
Would you like to see Riddler break out in the next film or stay for a while and move forward? I'm okay with him staying in Arkham Asylum for the second film. I don't need him to come back. I do want him eventually to be a presence, but I think it would be smart, kind of going along with Sean's idea, if they start building up all these villains in Asylum and in Arkham, and maybe Joker's getting in all their heads and creating a team, or just gonna set them off the leash or whatever. I want him to be a presence, maybe see him in the second film, but I want the second film to focus on somebody else. Eventually he can come out when we've built out this rogues gallery. Oops, I'm going to click that a second time. And Mark Strong is Mr. Freeze. Depends on the interpretation of Mr. Freeze.
Had him in too many comic book villain roles.
By default, he's just in all the comic book movies, usually as a villain.
Shazam, Green Lantern. Kick-Ass. It's just like
the Kingsman is technically, isn't that a comic book movie? Yeah. My superficial fan casting for Mr. Freeze is Giancarlo Esposito, and Brian doesn't understand it because he's never watched Breaking Bad to this day. Still making that mistake.
I've got it sat there on the shelf. I will get around to it.
Even worse, that it's in arm's length from you and you still refuse. I saw you comment the other day about some show that you were going to watch, and I was going to comment, like, if you watched that before Breaking Bad, I swear to God. Anyway, he's in Breaking Bad, gives one of the most iconic villain performances in TV history. You've probably seen him in other things, but that is my fan casting for Mr. Freeze, just that personality that he brings. So let's talk about the Riddler a little bit and we'll wrap up, because that's the only character we haven't really talked about. Now, I said that I've been wanting like a serial killer Jigsaw version of Riddler for a while. I really loved what they did with him. I loved how he was minimalistic. He just kind of had presences throughout the film. The way that they introduced him, just that dark silhouette where you just see the TV flashes on his glasses, was like an introduction of a horror character. And from that moment, I was like, oh, you talk about like moments in movies where you're like, this is going to be special. That was the moment for me for the Riddler. The first time that I watched it, I thought maybe Paul Dano was dialing it up a little bit once he's Paul Dano, but seeing it a second time, recontextualizing kind of his psychology with Batman, thinking that that's actually his buddy, and then the sudden realization that he's not, and he's just somebody else that thinks he's a freak, makes a lot more sense to me. So again, that was another thing that washed away on second viewing. I thought he was damn good. I thought that he was definitely the best version of Riddler we've seen on screen, for sure. But I loved what they did with him. There was just enough heart of Riddler there while giving us flavors of other things. And he's one of the few Batman villains. Not everything that he plans out works out, but he's one of the few Batman villains that pretty much wins. I mean, he kills a lot of damn people and with the exception of Bruce Wayne and however many people Bruce saves in this amphitheater, the Riddler fucks shit up in this movie. And so I like that. I like when a villain is that menacing to where he's not just easily dispatched, his plan is foiled, and ha ha ha, see you next time. Like, he pretty much gets 95% of his way by the end of the film.
Yeah, Joker wins in Dark Knight as well.
Yeah, I said one of the few.
Yeah.
So,
Just wanted to-
50% wins because he lost the prisoner dilemma.
yeah.
He
there
won
you go.
the other
Yes.
one, but he lost the prisoner
Yeah,
dilemma.
he wins his ace in a hole, Brian. That's like your plan D. No. So Brian, we'll kick it off to you really quick. What did you think about the Riddler? Did you have certain expectations for the character? Do you even like the Riddler in general? Is he one of your favorite villains, or have you always kind of the Jim Carrey thing's always kind of
comic
can't separate that?
comic book wise, he's never been one of my favorites. Like I say, I do like it when they go a bit darker with him. Like from much of the 90s and like right up to Hush. Hush is when they really started taking Riddler seriously again. So like early 90s, there was that one story I was talking about before, when there was like a lot of cult stuff in there, and I'm like, whoa, this is super dark for Riddler from what I know. But then everything I know of him before that, yeah, it was like kind of 60s, 70s camp kind of stuff. So yeah, I do prefer him when they go dark with him. I think on the first watch, because he was the one character from a villain standpoint where I sort of knew what to expect with him, because it had been billed as Zodiac Killer kind of thing. So when he goes a bit nuts and this, that, and the other, that kind of passed me by a bit in the first one from a performance standpoint. Where it's like, yeah, he's doing what I would expect. That's great. Whereas meanwhile, I was blown away by Colin Farrell as Penguin. I was really surprised by John Turturro as Falcone. And then it was on the second watch when I was just concentrating a bit more on what Dano was doing with his performance, and I was like, actually, this guy's really good. He's really good. All the different nuances that he's putting in there, like that opening scene, I feel like that's his first time he's ever killed.
Yeah.
I feel like he's really building himself up to it. And right from the shout, he doesn't have to shout. But when he goes for the kill, it's almost like he's got to build himself up to it, and he's got to push past that thing that is telling him, don't do this. Once you cross this line, that's it. You are in. You are, and it's just, it feels very like, and then he just lets out that and kind of kills this guy. And then that again, the prison cell sequence is just the way he switches on a dime, because his whole world has just been shattered. What he thought was happening, what he thought he was in on and building this relationship with Batman it's all in your head, mate. You are crackers.
Yeah, it's kind of like that rule of don't meet your heroes.
Yeah,
so he kind of views Batman like you put the first foot forward, you've made me. Now I'm able to, like when he's like, I wish you could have seen me in my mask. It's almost like they're like hanging out at Comic-Con or something like that.
Yeah.
And then when he's like, no, you're a freak, you're a psychopath. They're just that whole side of it landed for me on the second time, where it kind of, there was so much going on, I kind of skated past it the first time. I was just like, oh, now he's going nuts.
Yeah. I really liked him. I'd like to see him return. One of the things I loved about Dark Knight trilogy was how Scarecrow kept popping up.
Yeah.
It was like the first time, and it's still the only time a villain, but has appeared in 3 movies, but by the same actor in Batman movies, and it's just nice. You don't have to give them the same level of screen time or anything, because the focus will be on someone else, but just knowing they're still there, knowing that they're part of this organic kind of city that's got a life of its own, that I like that kind of world building. So
it's the only time I've ever seen Riddler who is intimidating. and was actually kind of had a fear factor to him. Because even Riddler at his best, it tends to be this really nerdy guy that as soon as you solve his riddle, you're going to beat his ass in 2 seconds and throw him right back into the Arkham Asylum. This was the only one where it was just like, no, this guy's pretty terrifying at his core. Sean, any thoughts to add to the Riddler?
No. Trying to think if I have anything actually new to add at this point in time. I think like the fact that they found a way to, if you're going to do a detective story, which is what we've all said we wanted to do, who is the character that sets up the great mystery for the world's greatest detective to solve? Riddler. Makes sense. Yeah. But then how do you make him someone that fits in this dark noir context and isn't like just like a guy in a green question mark? Hey! How do you do that?
Riddle me this.
And you combine that with being a serial killer, and then who's someone that like you pull from reality, something that's really creepy that had kind of the riddles and ciphers to it, and that's you start like coming up with this really inspired way to make the Batman movie that we've been waiting for, that uses what's in the lore and uses what's terrifying in reality, and you merge a bunch of stuff together, and it's, one part Zodiac Killer, one part John Doe from Seven, one part Jigsaw, and when you combine that all together, you just get something really unique, really creepy, really intimidating. And it kind of also provides like an opportunity for Paul Dano to give this really nuts performance.
Yeah,
it definitely got the John Doe vibes in this, like more than
even just him going to the diner and putting his hands up. Like once his plan's done, he's like,
and going to finding his room as well, and it's full of all the journals, which is exactly what they do in Seven. It literally is John Doe. More than any other film or character, I would say the Riddler in this is definitely.
And
John
also
Doe.
a really subtle way of mirroring Bruce Wayne and Batman, because he's keeping his nightly journals and everything too. So so I really love that. Well, we're at 2 hours and 11 minutes. Is there anything else you guys want to discuss or get your thoughts in really quick on the Batman before we
the post-credit scene? Let's spend some time on that.
Goodbye.
It was funny. I saw my I went to the fan screening at the IMAX, and I had already seen on Twitter. It might have been Chris from 3C that put a tweet out where somebody asked him, but I knew there was nothing, no scene anyway at the end. And I think I was one of 3 people that got up from a full theater. Everybody else stood there. I'm like, man, feel sorry for everybody that has to piss in this theater, because they're sitting there like, oh, come on, what's it going to be?
I told people in my second showing, I told people that were sat around me, they were nestling in. I was like, I just said, there's nothing to see, by the way. Word just comes up, says goodbye in green writing. And they just stayed. It's like they didn't believe me. It's like, I don't trust him. There's something great at the end of this.
It's been so ingrained into our mind. Anything comic book, we're like, there's got to be something. And to the point where it's almost like it's a more subtle version of what they did. What was it, Spider-Man Homecoming, where Chris Evans comes back and he's like, sometimes life's a disappointment. It was kind of like that, where just Riddler said goodbye. So yeah, all right. So
I personally think that Joker scene, if they had to put it in the film, that should have been the after credits sequence.
And it would have almost functioned better as a post
as a standalone scene.
Yeah,
it makes more sense there than it does like in the epilogue. That thematically you have this, I gotta be a hero, not just vengeance. Cut to random scene, back to closing out Batman's arc. Do what everyone else does. Throw it at the end. Oh, we got a little tease. That where things are headed. Cool. That's what it's there for. You cut the other scene, so this one just plays as this weird standalone little thing.
The only thing I would say, finally, thoughts is probably. I'm not the biggest fan of Michael Giacchino's music for the most part. I think he tends to do a lot of rather incidental type of stuff. That, for me, what makes a truly great soundtrack is something that works really well in the context of the film, but then when you listen to it just on its own, also is real badass. I think Hans Zimmer is great for that. Man of Steel soundtrack. You can listen to that completely on its own.
Inception for me.
And it
Is
says,
time.
yeah, Inception as well. But like not just like one track, you know what I mean? Like Inception's got at least 6 tracks on it that are just all killer, and you're just like, I can just listen to this on its own, and it's fantastic. I listened to the Batman soundtrack a couple of times after seeing the movie, and I'm like, it's got a certain theme, you know, the Batman theme that pops up constantly throughout, and that's good. I like that. It suits the character. But besides that, I'm like, it's kind of one note, really. Within the it's one of them soundtracks that within the context of the film works brilliantly. On its own, not quite as well, save for a couple of tracks.
Yeah, I kind of felt the same way about it, only because everybody was like ready to hand it Oscar for greatest score ever before the movie came out. Like when the soundtrack released, everybody was freaking out. I mean, Twitter has been blowing the score for months now, and so yeah, I was kind of that way where I'm like, it's a good score, but it's slightly repetitive. Like it's just that one kind of beat over and over, and yeah,
that was a set.
Now I'm demonetized. Thanks.
That was my bugbear with Black Klansman winning the Oscar for best soundtrack, because I am someone who listens to scores, and I think sometimes somebody will watch a movie and there will be a piece of music in it that just it sticks in the head. So because of that, they say best score. And it's like, well, actually listen to the score on its own, because that one piece of music might be the only thing in it, actually, that there's a reason that one piece stuck in your head. And I felt like that was the way with Black Klansman. I personally thought that film deserved Best Picture. I thought it was a great movie, but the soundtrack wasn't the reason why. There's a fantastic piece of music in it, and then it's just repeated about 7 times over the soundtrack. It's like, that's not a score to me. That's a track that is just on repeat. So yeah, I'm quite particular about my scores.
I've given up on ever trying to figure out what the Oscars are thinking and what they're doing. Every year I'm like, why was this person not nominated and why was this not? Anyway, rabbit trail for another day. Anyway, guys, that is our spoiler talk of the Batman. Once again, huge welcome to Sean, official. What's the term in Rescue Me? Probie. He's the probie of the group now. Did you not watch Rescue Me? It's like the derogatory term for new guy. Anyway.
I'm the Jason Newsted of the group.
There you go.
How about
there?
there?
You go.
I understand that reference that I just made.
I don't get that one either. So.
Metallica, the bass player. Cliff Burton.
Oh, Lord.
Nothing?
Anyway, we do have one more thing that I want to announce now. Me and Sean talked about this briefly on one of our Q&As while he was here in town. So some of you guys already know this is coming. But I put together a little teaser for something to expect here in the next couple of months. Here it is.
Do not cite the deep magic to me, witch. I was there when it was written.
In the dungeon! Turn around in the dungeon! You shall not pass!
Hey! Just kidding, we're not doing that. No, I'm just playing. So, anyway, if time allows, if time works out the way that we want it to, we have 3 31 on 31s planned for this year. That one is the first one. That was an idea that I had last year. I'm somebody who has little to no experience in the fantasy genre. So Star Wars is the only franchise that I'm even familiar with in this ranking. Yes, I've only seen 1 Harry Potter film. I've only seen 1 Lord of the Rings film. Never seen anything from Chronicles of Narnia. So it's going to be an interesting ride for me. These are franchises, especially Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings, that I've wanted to experience for a long time, just needed an excuse to do it. So as of right now, it's planned for May 31st. April is when the new Fantastic Beasts movie is supposed to come out if it doesn't get pushed. So obviously, pending if that movie holds its date, is when is when this 31 will come out. So that is planned as of right now for May 31st. All those franchises. There's one more that was really exciting because it should be very easy for us to do as far as our experience with these movies that I'm not going to tell you about right now, even though me and Sean briefly talked about it. Some of you know about it. And then, of course, the horror one in October. So look forward to that. Should be a lot of fun. Sean, what can we look forward to over at Sean Chandler Talks About for, let's say, the next week? A lot of Batman stuff, I imagine.
Basically, this is Batman month. Sean Chandler Talks About Batman is what's going on with my channel. So I reviewed all the movies, and then I did all my normal rankings over the last week with the movies, actors, villains, all that fun stuff. What I'm excited about for this next week is that I'm doing a video on canceled Batman movies. It'll probably actually be 2 videos because there's 40 years of canceled Batman movies. Gone all the way back to right after Superman the movie, they tried to get a Batman in motion, and then all along the way they've had projects that with big gigantic names attached that didn't happen, all the way up until Oscar winning writer and director Ben Affleck was going to do a Batfleck movie, and then we got the thing that we just talked about instead. So really excited to talk about that one and what they might have been and why they didn't happen.
Awesome. That should be interesting. Brian, aside from our big, gigantic, especially yours, ranking of the Batman villains that's supposed to be dropping tomorrow afternoon or evening, what can we look forward to from Brian Lomax Movie Talk coming in the next, we'll say, few weeks?
Well, first of all, I am no longer called Brian Lomax Movie Talk. I've actually changed my channel name to just
It's going to take me
Lomax.
3 years to get that
Yeah. I just...
Hashtag not my Brian Lomax.
I feel like I tied myself down by naming my channel Brian Lomax Movie Talks. It means I'm only free to talk about movies, and I've always wanted to talk about comic books as well on my channel and things like that. And I don't want to have to set up a new channel to do that because I've already got like 4 on the go. So yeah. I will be talking comic books soon. I'm going to start reviewing every issue of Batman and Detective Comics that comes out, and so that'll just be a regular feature on the channel. But beyond that, just more movie stuff. Yeah. So.
Awesome. Well, I still have some days that I need to fill out, so this is not. There could be some surprises here. On the Game Chamber channel, obviously, I need to review Elden Ring. That's going to be coming within the next week. That's a game that you could spend 200 hours in and not see everything. So I don't know at what point where I'm going to feel like I've experienced enough to actually know what the hell I'm talking about with a review, but that's coming soon. As far as the main channel, the one you're on right now, tomorrow me and Brian are doing our ranking of the Batman villains, and that one's going to be a pretty sizable ranking. I think Brian's got close to 40 villains, so he's getting a little bit more deep cut. I've got 32 or 33 on mine.
Competition for those who watch my. That's an idea, actually. I'm gonna film a new intro for the video for a competition time, based on the criteria I've come up with for defining what makes a Batman villain in these movies. Which villain have I missed off the list?
There you go. We are still neck deep in the middle of my Wes Craven review series. Up next is People Under the Stairs and Vampire in Brooklyn. I also have a screener for Deep Water, the movie with Ben Affleck and Ana de Armas. So provided that I enjoy the movie enough to actually talk about it, that will be a review that I will do. And I also have a movie written down called The Outfit. This sounds like a mob movie. I don't know what it is, but it piqued my interest a little bit. So that's a maybe. And some other ideas. We still have the Patreon pick video from last month as well as this month that I'm going to be doing, and a couple of the ideas. So that's pretty much what to look forward to here. And as always, guys, please subscribe to their channels. As soon as I get off of live here, I'm put the links for all of their channels as well as CPs, so be sure to support them over there. Hit the subscribe button on this channel if you're finding me for the first time. And thank you guys for watching. We will see you on the next one.
Bye-bye.